Life, in all its quiet forms, moves gently through cycles of growth, from the smallest single-celled organism drifting in a droplet of water to the tallest tree rooted in the soil. Every living being depends upon nourishment. Nutrition and energy are the threads that weave together the fabric of existence, binding all creatures into a shared rhythm of survival. Without fuel, there can be no movement, no thought. Yet nourishment is not always dramatic. More often, it is subtle, unhurried, and constant, like the slow rise of the sun each morning, or the steady flow of a river that wears its path into the earth over time. When we speak of nourishment, we do not mean only food upon the table. We speak of something deeper, something elemental. For plants, nourishment comes from sunlight, absorbed and transformed into sugars that fuel their green leaves and strong stems. For animals, nourishment arrives in bites and sips, in the gathering of fruits, seeds, or prey, and in the water that cools and sustains their bodies. For humans, it is both the simple act of eating and the intricate, unseen processes that unfold inside every cell. To be nourished is to participate in the cycle of life itself, a cycle that has been turning since the very first organisms learned to capture energy billions of years ago. This energy, invisible yet ever present, is what keeps us alive. The beating of the heart, the movement of air in and out of the lungs, the flicker of thought in the brain, all of these depend on a continuous supply of energy. And energy, in turn, comes from the nutrients we take in. Every grain of rice, every sip of water, every leaf of lettuce or slice of fruit is more than just food. It is potential energy, waiting to be transformed into warmth, motion, and life. The human body is remarkable in its ability to take raw materials from the environment and quietly turn them into the power it needs. Imagine for a moment a warm loaf of bread. On the surface, it seems simple. Flour, water, yeast. Yet within it lies a hidden store of starch, a chain of sugars bound together. Once eaten, these sugars will be broken down into glucose, the preferred fuel of our cells. This glucose travels silently in the blood, carried to tissues that need energy, to muscles as they contract, to neurons as they pass signals, to the heart as it pumps tirelessly. In this way, a loaf of bread becomes thought, movement, and vitality. The same is true of other foods. A glass of milk carries proteins that can be dismantled into amino acids, building blocks for tissues that need repair. A spoonful of oil contains fats that can be stored for long-term use, tucked away like a reserve supply of warmth against the cold. Even the crisp bite of an apple delivers more than sweetness. It offers fiber to guide digestion, vitamins to support the immune system, and water to keep the body's balance. To eat, then, is not merely to satisfy hunger, but to replenish the stores of energy that every moment of life quietly consumes. Consider how constant this need is. Even while asleep, the body continues its work. The heart does not pause, nor do the lungs, nor do the processes of repair and renewal within tissues. While dreams drift across the mind, energy is still being used. Cells are still busy, mending small tears in muscles, producing new blood cells, strengthening the immune defenses. The stillness of rest belies the activity within. Nutrition provides for these unseen labors as much as for the visible ones of walking, speaking, or working. This dependence on energy connects humans to all other living things. Plants capture light and turn it into sugars. Animals eat plants or each other to obtain those sugars secondhand. And humans, like all animals, are part of this chain. Sunlight falls upon leaves. The leaves grow and are eaten. And in time, energy makes its way into every creature. The warmth of the sun becomes the warmth of blood. the radiance of a star transformed into the quiet hum of a living cell. Nutrition is the link between cosmic energy and the fragile, fleeting moments of life. In this way, nourishment is more than a biological necessity. It is a bridge between the outside world and the inner world. Every bite taken is a piece of the environment brought inside, transformed into something deeply personal. A grain of wheat grown in the soil becomes part of muscle fiber. A berry ripened under the sky becomes part of the mind that thinks and dreams. Eating is a quiet act of union, binding us not only to the present moment but to the earth itself. Yet, while nutrition is universal, the ways in which it is experienced are diverse. A bird may sip nectar from a flower, gaining immediate sugar energy. A bear may store fat through summer and autumn, preparing to sleep through the hunger of winter. A cactus may conserve water and slowly use its stored sugars during long dry months. Each organism finds its own rhythm, its own balance between intake and expenditure, between hunger and fulfillment. Humans, too, navigate this balance not always perfectly, but always with the same fundamental need at heart. To begin our gentle journey through the basics of nutrition and energy, it is helpful to hold this image in mind. Life as a constant exchange. Energy flows in, energy flows out. We take in the substances that sustain us, and in turn, we release energy back into the world in the form of heat, motion, and breath. Nothing is wasted, everything is transformed. This is the quiet law of life, a law that has shaped every creature since the dawn of time. As you listen and drift, you may notice how the very act of breathing follows this same rhythm. Inhaling, we take in oxygen, a vital partner in energy production. Exhaling, we release carbon dioxide, the soft remainder of those processes. This cycle repeats endlessly, calmly, without demand for attention. Nutrition, too, follows such a rhythm. Food enters, is transformed, and sustains, while the body continues its endless, gentle dance of energy. 2. What we mean by nutrition. When we use the word nutrition, it may bring to mind a simple thought of food, of meals prepared and shared, or perhaps of the basic act of eating. Yet in science, nutrition stretches far deeper, unfolding as a quiet and intricate story of how living organisms take in, transform, and use substances to stay alive. It is not only about the flavors on a plate or the feeling of hunger satisfied, but also about the subtle processes within the body that never cease. In truth, nutrition is the science of connection, linking the outer world of soil, sunlight, and water to the inner world of cells, tissues, and thought. It is the study of how life nourishes itself in order to grow, repair, and persist. At its most basic, nutrition is about substances. These are the materials that the body cannot create entirely on its own, yet must obtain to survive. Some nutrients provide energy, fueling the movements and functions that make up life. Others do not supply energy directly, but they enable the body to use and regulate that energy with precision. Together, these nutrients form a balanced orchestra. If even one instrument is missing, the music falters. Too much of one, too little of another, and the harmony of health begins to slip. Nutrition is therefore not only about eating, but about balance, timing, and quiet regulation. Imagine, for instance, the daily journey of a human body. Upon waking, energy is already being spent to keep the heart beating and the lungs filling with air. Muscles stir to action as the body rises. Perhaps food is taken in a piece of fruit, a cup of tea, a slice of bread. This food is not energy in itself. Not yet. It is potential. It carries within it carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and water, each destined to play its own role. Through digestion, absorption, and cellular use, these pieces are transformed into something more. They become the warmth of blood, the strength of muscle, the clarity of thought. This is nutrition in motion, the quiet transformation of the outer world into the essence of inner life. Even when we are unaware, nutrition continues to work for us. A cut upon the skin, barely noticed, will be mended with new tissue thanks to proteins and minerals drawn from food. The faint light entering the eye at dusk is converted into sight with the help of vitamin A, stored from past meals. The contraction of a muscle depends upon calcium flowing in and out of cells, guided by signals that would not function without electrolytes like sodium and potassium. These tiny processes are all linked to nutrients, all dependent upon the simple but profound act of taking in food and water. Nutrition, in this sense, is not an occasional act but an unbroken partnership with life itself. Different organisms experience nutrition in different ways. Plants, for example, capture sunlight through photosynthesis, turning carbon dioxide and water into sugars that sustain them. They are producers, creating their own energy-rich food. Animals, including humans, cannot perform such a feat. Instead, they are consumers. They must obtain energy by eating plants, or by eating other animals that have fed upon plants. In this way, nutrition is also an ecological concept, a flow of energy through ecosystems. Sunlight becomes sugar in leaves, sugar becomes energy in an animal, and in turn, that energy continues its journey through the food chain. Every meal, in this sense, is part of a much larger cycle. For humans, nutrition is both simple and complex. On one hand, it is about eating enough to fuel daily life. On the other, it is about eating in the right proportions so that the body can function optimally. Too little energy and the body weakens. Too much, and it stores the excess, sometimes to the point of harm. Too little of a vitamin or mineral and systems begin to fail quietly, sometimes imperceptibly, until the deficiency grows severe. Nutrition teaches us that balance is not only wise but essential. It is a reminder that the body is constantly seeking harmony, adjusting and adapting to the supply of nutrients it receives. Consider water, often forgotten in the list of nutrients. It provides no calories, no direct energy, yet it is perhaps the most vital nutrient of all. Without water, no digestion could occur, no nutrient could dissolve, no cell could maintain its shape. It makes up most of the human body and is involved in nearly every function, from temperature control to circulation. To drink water is to nourish in the most fundamental way, to provide the medium in which all other nutrients can work. Nutrition, then, is not limited to what is solid or flavorful. It includes even the clear, tasteless substance that quietly sustains every heartbeat. There is also the gentle truth that nutrition is not instant. The body does not simply take in food and immediately turn it into usable energy. Instead, there is a process of transformation. Carbohydrates are digested into sugars, proteins into amino acids, fats into fatty acids. These pieces are absorbed and carried by the blood, delivered to cells that will use them in chemical reactions. Within the cells, these building blocks are broken down further, rearranged, and recombined to release or store energy. The process is constant, unhurried, and intricate. At each step, the body regulates carefully, never leaving anything entirely to chance. Nutrition is also deeply linked to energy balance. At rest, the body requires a baseline amount of fuel simply to keep its systems running. This is called the basal metabolic rate, and it represents the quiet energy used for breathing, circulating blood, maintaining temperature, and sustaining organs. Beyond this, energy is required for movement, whether as gentle as walking or as demanding as lifting and carrying. Nutrition must cover both the silent energy of rest and the visible energy of action. It is a partnership between fuel and need, between intake and expenditure. Throughout history, humans have understood this connection, even if not always in scientific terms. Ancient civilizations spoke of food as life-giving, of bread and grain as the staff of life. Farmers knew the soil needed nutrients to support crops, just as the body needed nutrients to support health. In many cultures, meals were seen not only as physical nourishment, but as spiritual and communal events. Nutrition, in these traditions, was not separate from living well, but at the heart of it. Even today, though we understand nutrients in precise chemical detail, the underlying truth remains the same. Food and drink are the foundations of life. In the end, when we say nutrition, we mean more than eating, more than the science of calories or vitamins. We mean the quiet, ongoing process by which the outer world becomes part of the inner one. We mean the transformation of sunlight into sugar, of soil into fruit, of fruit into energy, and of energy into thought, breath, and being. Nutrition is the word we give to this flow of life, to the constant exchange that allows every living creature to endure. It is at once ordinary and profound, as simple as a sip of water, and as complex as the chemistry within a single cell. And so, as we continue to drift deeper into this gentle exploration, we carry with us the understanding that nutrition is not an abstract idea but the most tangible of all connections. Every breath, every heartbeat, every quiet moment of rest depends upon it. Nutrition is the steady rhythm behind life, a rhythm so soft and constant that it may be overlooked, yet without which the music of existence would fall silent. 3. Energy, the hidden currency of living things. Energy is often spoken of as though it were something separate, something abstract, a concept reserved for science books or equations. Yet energy is not distant. It is within and around us at every moment, the quiet force that makes life possible. Without it, no cell could function, no muscle could move, no mind could dream. Energy is, in many ways, the hidden currency of living things, exchanged constantly and spent in countless small ways throughout the day and night. Unlike coins in a pocket or notes in a wallet, this currency is invisible, yet it flows through us ceaselessly, allowing the body to carry out both the simplest and the most intricate of tasks. To imagine energy is to imagine motion, warmth, and change. It is present in the turning of the earth around the sun, in the swaying of grass stirred by the wind, and in the gentle beating of a human heart. For life, energy is not a luxury but a necessity. A cell must have energy to build molecules, to divide, and to repair itself. Muscles must have energy to contract and relax. The brain, though small in proportion to the body, demands a great share of energy to send signals, to remember, to think. Energy is the unspoken foundation beneath all these activities, the quiet thread that ties every living function together. Where, then, does this energy come from? For all living beings, the ultimate source is the sun. Its rays, traveling vast distances across space, fall gently upon the earth, bringing with them the power that drives life. Plants capture this light through photosynthesis, weaving sunlight into sugars stored within their tissues. These sugars, simple yet profound, are the first coins of life's currency. Animals, including humans, cannot capture sunlight directly in this way. Instead, they depend on consuming plants or consuming other animals that have themselves fed on plants. In this sense, every bite of food is sunlight in disguise, transformed into a form that living creatures can use. A loaf of bread, a piece of fruit, a handful of rice, all carry within them the memory of the sun. In human terms, energy is often measured in calories. A calorie is a unit that represents a small amount of energy, the amount needed to raise the temperature of water by a single degree. When we speak of food containing 100 calories, or 500, we are really describing how much energy it holds, how much potential it carries to fuel the body's needs. These numbers may seem abstract, yet they translate into very real work. The calories in a single apple can fuel the quiet labor of heartbeats for an hour, or the gentle effort of walking a short distance. The calories in a meal can support both the invisible energy demands of the body at rest and the visible demands of movement and thought. What makes energy so fascinating is not only its source but also its transformation. Energy is never created anew by the body. It is always transformed from one form into another. The carbohydrates in food become glucose, which can be burned within cells to release usable energy. The fats stored in tissues can be broken down into fatty acids, supplying fuel when needed. Even proteins, though less commonly used for energy, can be broken apart and converted if the body requires it. At each stage, energy is changed, but it is never lost. This is a law of nature, a reminder that what sustains us does not vanish but shifts form, from light to sugar, from sugar to motion, from motion to heat that drifts quietly away. Consider, for a moment, the simple act of breathing. With each inhalation, oxygen enters the lungs and is carried by the blood to cells. Within those cells, oxygen allows glucose to be broken down more efficiently, releasing energy that would otherwise remain locked away. The oxygen we breathe, combined with the food we eat, becomes the spark that fuels our every action. With each exhalation, carbon dioxide is released, a gentle reminder of the processes at work within us. Breathing, often unnoticed, is a constant companion to the transformation of energy, a rhythm that keeps the cycle moving without pause. Energy is not only about immediate use, it is also about storage and balance. The body, in its quiet wisdom, keeps reserves for times when food may not be available. Glucose is stored as glycogen in the liver and muscles, ready to be released when blood sugar falls. Fats are stored in adipose tissue, forming a long-term energy reserve that can sustain life when meals are scarce. These stores are not wasteful but essential, a form of saving for tomorrow. In times of abundance, the body tucks energy away. In times of scarcity, it draws upon these reserves. This balance is what allows survival through cycles of feast and famine, through days of activity and nights of rest. Even at rest, energy is constantly being spent. The body's basal metabolic rate represents this quiet expenditure, the energy required to keep organs functioning, blood circulating, temperature stable. A person sitting quietly, even asleep, is still using energy to power the silent work of life. When movement is added, when muscles contract, and the body exerts itself, energy use rises. Yet the foundation remains the same. Whether still or active, awake or asleep, the body must always spend its hidden currency to endure. In this sense, energy is not only a scientific concept, but also a reminder of continuity. The energy we use today once traveled from the sun to the earth, was captured by plants, passed into food, and now flows within us. When we move, when we release heat, when we exhale carbon dioxide, that energy returns to the environment, to be used again in other forms. The cycle is endless. Nothing is wasted. The warmth of a sunlit morning, the growth of green leaves, the strength of a human step, all are expressions of the same current of energy, shifting but never ending. To see energy as the hidden currency of living things is to recognize the subtle unity of life. Every creature, from the smallest insect to the largest whale, spends this same currency. Every plant, every bird, every human participates in the same exchange. The forms differ, the needs vary, but the principle remains unchanged. Energy flows in, energy flows out. Life continues, quietly powered by this invisible but essential force. As we reflect on this, it becomes clear that energy is not only a measure of survival but also a measure of connection. The food we eat ties us to the soil, the sun, and the living world. The breath we take ties us to the air, the plants that release oxygen, the cycles that have shaped the earth for millions of years. Energy, in all its hidden forms, is both intimate and universal. It fuels the smallest flicker of thought and the greatest movements of nature. It is, quite simply, the essence of life. 4. The story of food and energy in nature. The story of food and energy is as old as life itself, a tale written not in words, but in cycles that have repeated for billions of years. It begins with the sun, a quiet but constant giver, sending its light across the great distance of space to reach the earth. That light, falling gently on leaves, grasses, and waters, becomes the starting point for almost every living thing. Without it, there would be no green forests, no fertile fields, no creatures walking the land or swimming in the sea. The sun provides the initial spark, and from that spark, life builds its endless chain of nourishment. Plants, in their stillness, are the first great keepers of this energy. Through the slow miracle of photosynthesis, they capture sunlight and weave it into sugars, simple molecules of stored energy. With nothing more than light, air, and water, a plant creates the substance that will sustain itself and countless others. These sugars move through the plant, building stems, leaves, and roots. They are stored in seeds, in fruits, in grains, waiting to be passed on to animals, humans, or back into the soil when the plant returns to the earth. In this way, the plant is both self-sufficient and generous, creating food for itself, but also for the entire web of life around it. When an animal grazes upon the grass, or a bird pecks at a berry, or a human takes a bite of bread, the energy of the sun passes forward. The sugars and nutrients within the plant become fuel for motion, thought. In this way, energy moves from one form to another, from the stillness of green leaves to the running of a deer or the laughter of a child. Each step in this transfer is a link in the chain of life. Each meal is a continuation of the same ancient exchange that began when the first plants appeared on Earth. But the story does not stop there. Some animals do not eat plants directly, but instead eat other animals that have already consumed them. A fox catches a rabbit. A hawk swoops down upon a mouse. A human cooks fish or meat. In each case, the energy of the sun still lies at the heart of the meal. The rabbit fed on grass. The mouse nibbled on seeds. The fish consumed plants or smaller creatures that themselves fed on algae. Every path leads back, quietly, but firmly, to photosynthesis. Even the fiercest predator is, in the end, nourished by plants and the sunlight they captured. This cycle is not wasteful. Every part of it is used, transformed, and returned. When an animal breathes, the carbon dioxide released becomes fuel for plants, which need it to perform photosynthesis. When leaves fall and decay, their nutrients return to the soil, where roots draw them in once more. When a creature dies, its body becomes food for decomposers, fungi, bacteria, and insects that break it down, returning minerals and matter to the earth. In this way, energy and matter move in circles, endlessly recycled, endlessly renewed. Water plays its own role in this story. Carried in raindrops, gathered in rivers, or resting in the depths of the ocean, it nourishes plants, carries nutrients, and serves as the medium in which life thrives. In aquatic environments, sunlight penetrates the surface, allowing algae and water plants to grow. These tiny photosynthesizers become the base of food chains, feeding fish, which in turn feed larger fish, birds, or mammals. In the vast oceans, this story unfolds on a grand scale, with plankton capturing sunlight and becoming the foundation of life for whales, seals, and countless marine creatures. The sea is alive with the same cycle as the land, the same quiet exchange of energy from sunlight to organism, from one form of life to another. There are, too, places where sunlight does not reach the deep ocean floor, where darkness reigns eternal, and yet, even here, life finds a way. Around hydrothermal vents, bacteria extract energy not from light but from chemicals released by the earth itself. These bacteria, like plants, form the base of their own unique food chain, supporting strange creatures such as giant tube worms, clams, and crabs. Even in the absence of the sun, the story of energy continues, showing how life adapts to the resources available. It is a reminder that the principle is universal. Energy must be captured, stored, and passed along for life to endure. For humans, the story of food and energy is deeply intertwined with culture, tradition, and survival. Early people gathered fruits, nuts, and roots, later learning to cultivate grains and domesticate animals. Each discovery was a new chapter in the human relationship with energy, allowing communities to grow, to settle, and to build civilizations. Bread from wheat, rice from fields, maize from tall stalks. These became staples, concentrated stores of the sun's energy, reliable and nourishing. Even now, much of the food that sustains billions comes directly from these grains, the result of plants converting sunlight into edible stores. Energy in food is not always immediate. Some foods provide quick bursts, like the sweetness of honey or the simple sugars of fruit. Others provide slower, steadier fuel, like the starches in potatoes or the fats in seeds and oils. The body draws upon each at its own pace, weaving them together into a continuous flow of strength. This variation mirrors the rhythms of nature itself, with times of plenty and times of scarcity, with moments of quick activity and moments of rest. Food, in its diversity, matches the needs of life in its many forms. The story of food and energy is also one of cooperation. Bees gather nectar from flowers, gaining sugar, while helping the plants reproduce. Birds scatter seeds after feeding, ensuring the spread of trees and shrubs. Grazing animals prune grasses, allowing ecosystems to stay in balance. In each case, food and energy are not simply consumed but shared, exchanged, and cycled in ways that sustain the whole. The web of life is not built upon isolation but upon interdependence, each organism playing its part in the grand story of nourishment. When we pause to reflect, it becomes clear that every bite of food connects us to this ancient cycle. A slice of fruit carries the warmth of the sun and the rain of clouds. A grain of rice carries the labor of roots and soil. A piece of fish carries the energy of plankton, themselves nourished by light from above. To eat is to become part of this story, to join the chain of transformations that stretches back through time. The energy we use to walk, to breathe, to think, is the same energy that once shone from the sun, fell upon the earth, and was captured by green leaves. Thus, the story of food and energy is not only scientific but also deeply poetic. It is the story of sunlight turned into sweetness, of soil turned into strength, of life continuing through exchange. It is the story of cycles that never end, of energy flowing like a quiet river from one form to another. It is the reminder that we are never apart from nature but always woven into its fabric, nourished by the same forces that sustain every living thing. 5. Macronutrients, the body's primary fuels. When we think of the foods that sustain us, we are really thinking about macronutrients, the great providers of energy and structure that the body needs in large amounts. The very word macronutrient means large nutrient, and it reflects the role these substances play in daily life. They are the fuels that keep the body alive and the building blocks that form its tissues. Without them, no heartbeat could continue, no breath could flow, no step could be taken. They are the fundamental pillars of nutrition, quietly supporting life with every meal. There are three main macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Each serves a unique purpose, and yet all are linked together in the constant rhythm of metabolism. Carbohydrates are the body's preferred source of quick energy. Proteins are the materials for growth and repair, and fats are the dense reserves that sustain us when immediate energy runs low. They differ in form and in function, yet they work side by side, ensuring that the body has both the fuel to act and the structure to endure. Every grain of rice, every slice of bread, every nut or seed is in truth a package of these essential macronutrients, waiting to be transformed into the essence of life itself. Carbohydrates are often described as sugars and starches, but in essence, they are simply chains of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, arranged in forms that the body can use for energy. Simple carbohydrates, like glucose and fructose, provide quick bursts of energy because they are digested rapidly. A bite of fruit or a spoonful of honey delivers sweetness that can be absorbed almost immediately into the bloodstream, fueling cells without delay. Complex carbohydrates, like those found in grains and legumes, are made of longer chains that take more time to break apart. They provide a slower, steadier release of energy, sustaining the body over hours rather than minutes. In both forms, carbohydrates are transformed into glucose, which circulates in the blood and serves as the primary fuel for the brain and muscles. When we move, when we think, when we dream, glucose is there, quietly feeding the activity. Proteins, in contrast, are not mainly about energy, though they can provide it when needed. Their true strength lies in their role as builders. Made of smaller units called amino acids, proteins form the structure of muscles, skin, blood, and organs. They are the raw materials for enzymes, the catalysts that make chemical reactions possible, and for hormones, the messengers that coordinate the body's functions. Every strand of hair, every fragment of bone, every antibody fighting infection depends on proteins. There are 20 different amino acids, and while the body can make some of them, 9 must come from the diet. These are called essential amino acids, and they remind us that proteins are not optional but necessary, woven into the very fabric of life. When we eat beans, dairy, eggs, fish, or meat, we are replenishing the body's supply of amino acids, ensuring that growth, repair, and renewal can continue without interruption. Fats, often misunderstood, are equally vital. They are the most concentrated form of energy, providing more than twice the calories per gram compared to carbohydrates or proteins. Yet their purpose is not simply to store fuel. Fats cushion organs, insulate the body, and form the membranes that protect every cell. They allow the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, E, and K, carrying these nutrients into the bloodstream so they can do their work. Certain fats, known as essential fatty acids, cannot be made by the body and must be obtained from food. Omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, for example, play important roles in brain function, inflammation control, and cellular health. To eat seeds, nuts, fish, or oils is to provide the body with these subtle but powerful elements, without which balance would falter. Together, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats form a harmonious system. A meal that includes all three is not only satisfying but balanced, providing both immediate energy and long-lasting sustenance, both building blocks and reserves. Imagine a plate of rice with vegetables and a drizzle of oil. The rice provides complex carbohydrates that will break down into glucose, fueling the body steadily. The vegetables, though rich in micronutrients, also contribute some carbohydrates and small amounts of protein. The oil provides fat, offering both concentrated energy and support for nutrient absorption. Such a simple meal contains the three great macronutrients working together, each one playing its part in sustaining life. Macronutrients also interact in more subtle ways. When carbohydrates are scarce, the body turns to fats for fuel, breaking them down into molecules called ketones that can power cells in place of glucose. When both carbohydrates and fats are insufficient, proteins may be broken down, their amino acids diverted to energy production instead of their usual role in building. This adaptability shows the resilience of the body, its ability to survive under varied conditions. Yet it also reveals the importance of balance. To thrive, the body needs all three macronutrients in appropriate amounts. Not too much of one, not too little of another. The story of macronutrients is not only chemical but also ecological. Plants create carbohydrates through photosynthesis, storing them in roots, seeds, and fruits. Animals eat the plants, using the carbohydrates for energy and converting some into fats or proteins. Predators, in turn, eat other animals, drawing upon the macronutrients stored in their tissues. At every step, the energy of the sun and the matter of the earth are transformed into carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, passed from one being to another. This cycle has continued for countless generations, uniting all life through the shared need for these primary fuels. For humans, macronutrients are also cultural. Across the world, diets vary, but the principles remain the same. In Asia, rice is the dominant carbohydrate. In the Americas, maize has long been central. In Europe and the Middle East, wheat forms the basis of bread. Proteins may come from fish in coastal regions, from beans and lentils in agrarian lands, from meat and dairy in pastoral communities. Fats may come from olives, coconuts, nuts, or animal sources, depending on climate and tradition. Each culture, through centuries of adaptation, has found ways to provide the three macronutrients, balancing them according to what the environment offers. Though the dishes may differ, the underlying needs are shared by all. When we pause to reflect on macronutrients, we see not only the science of nutrition but the rhythm of life itself. Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are not abstract concepts but tangible realities, present in every meal and every breath. They are the sugars that become thought, the amino acids that become strength, the fats that become warmth and protection. They are the primary fuels, the large nutrients upon which the small details of existence depend. Without them, life would falter. With them, it flows quietly, steadily, day after day. In the end, macronutrients are more than fuel. They are the foundation of nourishment, the pillars upon which all else rests. To understand them is to understand the body's simplest and most profound needs: the need for energy, the need for structure, the need for balance. In their presence, life continues with ease. In their absence, it struggles. They are the silent providers, the steady companions of every living thing. And so, each time we eat, whether a humble bowl of rice or a varied feast, we are not merely filling hunger, but renewing our bond with the very forces that sustain life. 6. Carbohydrates, sugars, starches, and steady energy. Carbohydrates are among the simplest and yet most essential gifts of nature, serving as one of the body's preferred sources of energy. When we think of bread fresh from the oven, rice simmering in a pot, or the sweet crispness of an apple, we are thinking of carbohydrates in their many forms. They are present in grains, fruits, vegetables, and even in milk. They arrive in sweetness and starch, sometimes immediately available, sometimes bound into longer chains that release their energy more slowly. To the body, however, the story is always the same. Carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, the simple sugar that feeds every cell. Whether from fruit or grain, honey or potato, the journey ends in the same gentle release of energy that keeps the body alive. Sugars, the simplest form of carbohydrates, are made of small molecules that the body can absorb with little effort. Glucose, fructose, and galactose are the most basic sugars, and they can be found alone or joined together in pairs, such as sucrose in table sugar or lactose in milk. When eaten, these sugars require little digestion. They slip quickly into the bloodstream, raising energy levels almost immediately. A ripe peach, with its delicate sweetness, provides fructose and glucose that can be felt as a swift lift, a gentle spark of fuel for the brain and muscles. Honey, with its blend of simple sugars, has long been treasured for this reason, offering quick nourishment with little delay. Yet sugars alone are not the whole story. Much of the world's energy comes from starches, which are long chains of glucose molecules bound together, found in grains like rice and wheat. In root vegetables like potatoes and cassava, starches provide energy that is slower to release but longer lasting. When eaten, starches are broken down gradually during digestion, releasing glucose into the blood at a steady pace. A bowl of rice does not bring the same immediate rush as a spoonful of sugar, but instead it offers hours of gentle energy, supporting the body through work, thought, and rest. It is this steadiness that has made starchy foods the foundation of diets across cultures and centuries. Alongside sugars and starches is fiber, another form of carbohydrate, though one that the body cannot fully digest. Fiber is found in plant cell walls, in skins of fruits, in the bran of grains. Though it does not release glucose, it plays an equally important role. Fiber slows the digestion of other carbohydrates, preventing sudden rises and falls in blood sugar. It provides bulk that keeps the digestive system moving smoothly, and it feeds the beneficial bacteria that live within the intestines. These bacteria, in turn, produce compounds that support health in quiet but powerful ways. Fiber, though often overlooked, is the gentle regulator, ensuring that the body's relationship with carbohydrates remains balanced and harmonious. Carbohydrates are sometimes thought of only as fuel for muscles, yet the brain depends on them most of all. Though it makes up only a small fraction of the body's weight, the brain consumes a large share of daily glucose. Every thought, every memory, every dream is powered by the steady supply of sugar flowing through the blood to the brain cells. Without glucose, concentration falters, moods shift, and the body sends signals of fatigue. In this way, carbohydrates are not merely about physical energy, but about mental clarity, emotional steadiness, and the quiet functioning of the nervous system. The body, in its wisdom, also stores carbohydrates for later use. Excess glucose is stored as glycogen in the liver and muscles, a reserve that can be drawn upon when food is not available, or when activity demands more fuel than is immediately present. These stores are limited, lasting only hours to a day, but they provide a crucial bridge between meals, a safety net against sudden shortages. When glycogen is used up, the body turns to fat for energy, but the preference for glucose remains clear. The body always seeks to keep some sugar in the blood, some glycogen in the muscles, ensuring that energy is never entirely absent. Carbohydrates, like all nutrients, are part of the larger story of ecosystems. Plants create them through photosynthesis, weaving sunlight into sugar. Animals eat plants, using the sugars for energy, and in turn may be eaten by other animals. At every step, carbohydrates move from one form to another, passing through the web of life. A kernel of corn grows from soil and sunlight, is eaten by a bird, and fuels the flutter of wings. A field of wheat becomes bread, which becomes the energy for human hands to build and create. Each grain, each fruit, each root carries within it not only calories but the memory of the sun, captured and stored for use by all who partake. Culturally, carbohydrates have shaped human history. Agriculture, the foundation of civilization, began with the cultivation of grains and starchy roots. Rice paddies supported entire societies in Asia. Maize fields sustained civilizations in the Americas. Wheat fields shaped life around the Mediterranean. These foods were not chosen by accident, but because they provided reliable, abundant carbohydrates. They could be stored, milled, cooked, and shared, becoming the basis of meals and the rhythm of daily life. Even now, bread, rice, and corn remain central to billions, the steady providers of energy that have carried humanity through centuries. Carbohydrates also bring comfort, perhaps because they so directly support the body's sense of well-being. A warm bowl of porridge, a plate of pasta, a piece of fruit in the afternoon. These foods offer not only energy, but a sense of calm. They stabilize blood sugar, provide fullness, and release neurotransmitters that ease the mind. This quiet emotional effect is as much a part of their story. To eat carbohydrates is to feel not only fueled but soothed, grounded in the simple nourishment that they provide. At times, carbohydrates have been misunderstood, feared as sources of excess or imbalance. Yet in their natural forms, as whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and legumes, they remain among the most vital foods. It is not the existence of carbohydrates that brings difficulty, but their refinement and concentration in modern forms. When stripped of fiber and nutrients, sugars and starches can act too quickly, overwhelming the body's balance. But in their whole form, they offer the steady, gentle energy that humans have relied upon for millennia. They remind us that nourishment is best found in simplicity, in foods that come directly from the earth, with little alteration. In the quiet workings of the body, carbohydrates are always present. They fuel the rise and fall of each breath, the contraction of each muscle, the spark of each nerve. They move invisibly in the bloodstream, enter the cells, and release their energy with patience. They are at once immediate and lasting, simple and complex, sweet and sustaining. Without them, life would lose its steadiness. With them, it continues in calm rhythm. To reflect on carbohydrates is to reflect on life's reliance on light and growth. Every apple, every grain, every root vegetable is a vessel of captured sunlight, waiting to be shared. To eat them is to join in the ancient cycle of energy, to take part in the gentle exchange that binds together sun, plant, animal, and human. Carbohydrates, sugars, and starches alike are not only food but connection, reminders that nourishment is both a necessity and a gift, simple yet profound, humble yet essential. 7. Proteins, builders and repairers. Proteins are among the most remarkable substances in the living world, for they are not only fuel but also structure, not only present in every meal but in every cell, every tissue, every thought of the human body. When we think of proteins, we may think first of foods like beans, eggs, or meat, but the true story of proteins lies within the quiet workings of life itself. They are the builders and repairers, the molecules that give shape to muscles, strength to bones, resilience to skin, and clarity to blood. They are not only consumed but continually recreated within, forming a living architecture that sustains the body at every moment. Without proteins, life could not grow, heal, or endure. The word protein comes from a Greek root meaning primary or of first importance, and this name is not misplaced. Proteins are chains of smaller units called amino acids, linked together in sequences that fold into intricate shapes. These shapes determine their function, and their functions are many. Some proteins form the structural framework of the body, like collagen in connective tissue or keratin in hair and nails. Others act as enzymes, the quiet catalysts that speed up the countless chemical reactions needed for survival. Still others serve as messengers, hormones that guide the rhythms of growth, metabolism, and emotion. To think of proteins is to think of life in motion, of molecules endlessly shaping and reshaping themselves to serve the body's needs. There are 20 amino acids used by the human body, and each one is like a letter in an alphabet. By arranging them in different orders, the body can write countless words, proteins, with distinct purposes. 9 of these amino acids are essential, meaning they must come from food, for the body cannot make them on its own. The others can be synthesized, but even they must be carefully balanced. This is why protein-rich foods are so important. A simple meal of lentils, fish, or dairy is not only satisfying to the senses, but essential to the silent processes of growth and repair unfolding beneath the skin. From the first breath of life, proteins are at work. In infancy, they build new tissue at a rapid pace, ensuring growth of muscle, bone, and organ systems. In adulthood, when growth slows, proteins remain indispensable as repairers. Each day, cells wear out and must be replaced. Tissues are strained and must be mended. Small injuries appear and must be healed. Proteins supply the raw materials for all of these quiet acts of renewal. Collagen repairs the tiny tears in skin. Actin and myosin restore strength to tired muscles. Antibodies defend against intruding microbes. It is as though the body carries within it an invisible team of builders, always on call, always supplied by the proteins drawn from meals past. Proteins are also found in the blood, performing tasks that sustain life from moment to moment. Hemoglobin, the red protein in blood cells, binds to oxygen in the lungs and carries it through the body, delivering it to tissues that need it most. Albumin, another blood protein, helps maintain balance of fluids, ensuring that water stays where it is needed, neither flooding tissues nor leaving them dry. Antibodies, themselves proteins, patrol the bloodstream, watching for signs of invasion, ready to neutralize threats before they can cause harm. Each of these tasks is essential, and each one depends upon proteins, the tireless workers of the body. Beyond structure and repair, proteins can also serve as energy when necessary. Normally, the body prefers carbohydrates and fats for fuel, saving proteins for their more specialized roles. But when those fuels run low, when fasting or scarcity occurs, proteins can be broken down and converted into glucose. This is not their primary purpose, and it comes at a cost, for it means dismantling the very structures that proteins have built. Yet it reveals again the body's adaptability, its quiet determination to survive with whatever resources are available. In the natural world, proteins are part of the same great cycle as carbohydrates and fats. Plants, though they are the great makers of sugar, also create proteins, weaving amino acids from nitrogen drawn from the soil. These plant proteins nourish herbivores, which in turn nourish carnivores. In every case, the amino acids are passed on, rearranged into new forms within each creature. A blade of grass becomes part of a cow's muscle, which may become part of a human meal, and in turn those amino acids are rebuilt into human tissue. Nothing is wasted. Everything is transformed. The proteins of one life become the proteins of another, binding the living world together in a continuous chain of renewal. Human cultures have long recognized the importance of protein, even before the science of amino acids was known. In some regions, beans and rice were eaten together, the combination providing a balance of essential amino acids. In others, milk and grains were paired, or fish and root vegetables. These traditions, born of observation and necessity, ensured that diets provided complete proteins, even when animal foods were scarce. Today we understand the chemistry behind these pairings, but the wisdom remains the same. Proteins must come from varied sources to ensure the full spectrum of amino acids the body requires. Proteins also influence how we feel and function in more subtle ways. Some amino acids are precursors to neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers of the brain. Tryptophan, for example, can be converted into serotonin, a molecule that influences mood, sleep, and calm. Tyrosine can become dopamine, which plays a role in motivation and reward. In this way, the proteins in food not only build the body but gently shape the mind, supporting emotional balance and mental clarity. Each meal, then, carries with it more than physical nourishment. It carries the potential to support the very patterns of thought and feeling that make us human. When we pause to reflect, it becomes clear that proteins are not just nutrients but partners in the very act of living. They are the threads from which the body is woven, the tools with which it repairs itself, the catalysts that keep its chemistry alive. They are as essential as breath, as constant as heartbeat, as silent as the work of the cells they support. A single strand of hair, a single drop of blood, a single smile, all are possible because proteins are there, building and repairing in the background. And so, each time we eat a source of protein, whether as simple as a handful of nuts or as elaborate as a carefully prepared dish, we are replenishing the supply of materials that life demands. The body takes in the amino acids, disassembles them, and then rebuilds them into new forms, unique to our own needs. What was once part of a plant or animal becomes part of us, stitched quietly into our tissues, our cells, our very being. It is a reminder that nourishment is not only about energy, but about continuity, about the rebuilding of self from the materials of the world around us. Proteins, then, are truly the builders and repairers, the patient companions of life. They remind us that survival is not only about movement or fuel, but about resilience, about the ability to heal, to adapt, to grow. They whisper to us of connection, of cycles in which nothing is lost, in which the matter of one life becomes the foundation of another. They are both ancient and immediate, both microscopic and immense in their importance. In their presence, life continues quietly, steadily, weaving itself anew each day from the threads of amino acids. 8. Fats. Energy and reserve. Fats are often spoken of with misunderstanding, viewed sometimes as something to be avoided, and at other times celebrated as essential. The truth, as is so often the case in nature, lies in balance. Fat is not the enemy of health, but a deep and ancient ally, one of the body's most concentrated forms of nourishment. In every creature that breathes, crawls, swims, or flies, fat serves as a reservoir of energy, a cushion of protection, a shield against the cold, and a fundamental part of the cells that compose life itself. To think of fat is to think of endurance, of reserves quietly waiting, of the body's remarkable ability to prepare not just for the needs of today, but for the unknown demands of tomorrow. The structure of fat is both simple and profound. At its core, fat is made of molecules called triglycerides, each one consisting of glycerol joined to 3 fatty acids. These fatty acids can vary in length and in chemical bonds, giving rise to the many different kinds of fats we encounter in food and within the body. Some are solid at room temperature, like butter or lard, while others are liquid, like olive oil or sunflower oil. Some are saturated, with no double bonds, while others are unsaturated, with bends and curves in their chains that keep them fluid. These small chemical differences, though invisible to the eye, create profound effects in how fats behave and in how the body uses them. Fat is the densest of the macronutrients, containing more than twice the energy per gram as carbohydrates or proteins. This density makes it ideal for long-term storage. When the body has more energy than it immediately needs, it stores some as glycogen, but glycogen is limited and heavy with water. Beyond that, the body converts excess energy into fat, tucking it into adipose tissue where it can remain for weeks, months, or even years. In times of scarcity, when food is absent or when energy demands rise, the body quietly calls upon these reserves, breaking down fat to release the fuel hidden within. In this way, fat is not a burden but a safeguard, a living memory of past abundance that allows survival through present need. But fat does more than store energy. It cushions and protects. Beneath the skin, layers of fat provide insulation, slowing the loss of heat, keeping the body steady against cold. Around organs, fat pads serve as shock absorbers, softening impacts, shielding delicate structures. Within cells, fats form the membranes that define life's boundaries, thin layers of lipid molecules that hold the contents of a cell in place while still allowing communication with the world outside. Without fat, cells would not exist as we know them, for their structure depends upon these flexible, water-repelling molecules. Certain fats are considered essential, for the body cannot create them and must obtain them through food. These include omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids found in fish, seeds, and nuts. Though needed in small amounts, their roles are vast. They shape the flexibility of cell membranes, influence the quiet workings of the immune system, and help regulate inflammation. They also play roles in the brain, where they are woven into the structure of neurons, influencing thought, mood, and memory. A diet lacking in these essential fats leads not to immediate collapse but to gradual imbalance, a reminder of how subtle and far-reaching their presence truly is. Fats also enable the body to use certain vitamins. Vitamins A, D, A, and K are fat-soluble, meaning they dissolve in fat and are carried by it into the bloodstream. Without fat in the diet, these vitamins could not be absorbed effectively, and the processes they support, vision, bone health, antioxidant protection, and blood clotting would falter. This partnership between fat and vitamins is another sign of nature's integration, the way in which one nutrient depends upon another, ensuring that the web of nutrition is always interconnected. Culturally, fat has played many roles. In cold regions, people have long relied on fatty foods for survival, eating fish rich in oil or storing animal fats to endure the winter. In warmer climates, plant oils became central, pressed from olives, coconuts, or seeds. These oils were not only food but also medicine, fuel, and even offerings in rituals. Fat was valued as a resource of warmth, energy, and life, a recognition of its deep importance. Even now, in modern kitchens, fat is essential not only for nutrition but for flavor, texture, and satisfaction. A drizzle of oil, a slice of cheese, a handful of nuts, these bring richness to meals that carbohydrates and proteins alone cannot provide. In the body, fat is not evenly distributed but follows patterns shaped by genetics, environment, and need. Some fat lies beneath the skin, giving softness and insulation. Some is stored deeper, around the organs, where it can both protect and, when excessive, cause strain. The balance of fat, like all aspects of nutrition, is delicate. Too little, and the body lacks reserves, lacks insulation, and cannot absorb fat-soluble vitamins. Too much, and the body may face challenges, as excess fat can interfere with metabolism and strain systems. Between these extremes lies the harmony that allows life to flourish. In nature, the role of fat is equally vital. Seeds often contain oils, dense reserves that provide energy for a new plant to grow. Animals build fat to endure migration, hibernation, or lean seasons. Whales and seals carry thick layers of blubber, insulating them against icy waters. Birds store fat before long flights, using it to sustain them across vast distances. In every case, fat is energy in reserve, carefully gathered, patiently stored, wisely used. It is the silent companion of survival, waiting until the moment it is needed. For humans, fat also influences the senses. It carries flavors, releases aromas, and creates a sense of fullness that lingers after a meal. It slows digestion, ensuring that energy enters the bloodstream gradually, rather than all at once. This is why meals containing fat feel more satisfying, and why they provide steadier fuel. Fat, though often invisible, shapes the experience of eating in ways both subtle and profound. When we reflect upon fat, we see it not as an enemy but as a partner, one that has been with life since its beginning. It is a storehouse, a shield, a structural foundation. It is the concentrated sunlight of long past days, carried forward in a form that life can use when needed most. It reminds us of endurance, of preparation, of cycles that carry us through abundance and scarcity alike. To eat fat is to join in this ancient rhythm, to replenish the reserves that protect and sustain us. And so, in the quiet story of nutrition, fat stands as the patient guardian. It does not rush like sugar, nor build like protein, but waits, steady and silent, to provide when called upon. It holds energy and trust, offering it back to life when the time comes. It softens, it protects, it enriches. Fat is not excess but essence, a vital part of the balance that allows every creature to live not only for the moment, but for the future as well. 9. Micronutrients, the subtle essentials. In the grand story of nutrition, there are the macronutrients, large and obvious, giving fuel and structure to the body in quantities measured by grams. But alongside them exists another class of nutrients, smaller in size, quieter in function, yet no less important. These are the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals required only in tiny amounts, measured in milligrams or even micrograms, yet vital to nearly every process of life. They do not provide calories. They do not give energy in the sense of fuel, but they allow the energy from macronutrients to be used, directed, and balanced. They are the subtle essentials, working invisibly in the background, guardians of harmony within the body. Micronutrients are like keys that unlock doors. Without them, the machinery of life would falter, enzymes would stall, and balance would be lost. A small spark is all it takes to light a flame, and in much the same way, a trace of a vitamin or mineral can determine whether a reaction proceeds, whether a process continues, whether health is maintained. The body requires them in such small amounts that their presence may seem trivial, yet their absence brings consequences that can be profound. It is this paradox needed in tiny doses, yet essential to life itself, that makes micronutrients both mysterious and indispensable. Vitamins are one part of this story. They are organic compounds, meaning they contain carbon, and they are divided into two groups, water-soluble and fat-soluble. Water-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin C and the B-complex group, dissolve in water and are not stored in large amounts by the body. They must be replenished regularly through food, for what is not used is excreted. Fat-soluble vitamins, on the other hand, vitamins A, D, E, and K, dissolve in fat and are stored in the body's tissues, available for longer periods of time. This distinction shapes how each vitamin functions, how it is absorbed, and how deficiency or excess may appear. Vitamin C is perhaps one of the best known, found in fruits and vegetables, long treasured for its role in preventing scurvy among sailors at sea. Yet its importance goes beyond that story. It is essential for the formation of collagen, the protein that gives structure to skin, blood vessels, and connective tissue. It is also an antioxidant, protecting cells from damage caused by free radicals, those unstable molecules that form naturally during metabolism. Even in its quiet role, vitamin C is like a guardian, shielding and repairing, keeping tissues resilient. The B vitamins, though grouped together, each carry unique responsibilities. Vitamin bone, or thiamine, is necessary for energy metabolism, helping convert carbohydrates into usable fuel. Vitamin B2, riboflavin, assists enzymes in releasing energy from food. Vitamin B3, niacin, is a key player in cellular respiration, the process by which cells create usable energy. Vitamin B6 supports amino acid metabolism and the production of neurotransmitters. Vitamin B12, found mainly in animal products, is essential for the formation of red blood cells and the health of nerves. Folate, another B vitamin, is required for DNA synthesis and cell division. Together, these vitamins are the quiet conductors of metabolism, ensuring that the macronutrients consumed are transformed into the living energy of the body. The fat-soluble vitamins carry their own unique importance. Vitamin A is crucial for vision, particularly in low light, for it forms part of the molecules in the eye that detect light. It also supports the immune system and maintains healthy skin. Vitamin D, sometimes called the sunshine vitamin, is produced in the skin when exposed to sunlight, though it can also be obtained from food. It regulates calcium balance, ensuring that bones remain strong and that nerves and muscles function properly. Vitamin E acts as an antioxidant, protecting cell membranes from damage, while vitamin K plays a central role in blood clotting, the quiet process that prevents excessive bleeding when injury occurs. Each of these vitamins, though invisible in daily life, sustains functions so essential that without them, survival itself would be threatened. Minerals, the other great class of micronutrients, are inorganic elements drawn from the earth, carried into plants through soil and water, and passed on to animals and humans through food. Like vitamins, they are required in small amounts but are indispensable to life. Some are needed in larger quantities, called macrominerals, such as calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and phosphorus. Others are needed in trace amounts, like iron, zinc, copper, iodine, and selenium. Whether large or small, each plays roles that no other substance can replace. Calcium is perhaps the most abundant mineral in the body, giving strength to bones and teeth, forming the framework that supports movement and protection. Yet calcium does more than build structure. It also plays a role in muscle contraction, nerve transmission, and blood clotting. Magnesium, another mineral, supports hundreds of enzyme reactions, influences muscle and nerve function, and helps regulate blood pressure. Sodium and potassium work together as electrolytes, maintaining fluid balance and allowing the transmission of electrical signals in nerves and muscles. Without their careful balance, the heart could not beat in rhythm, and cells could not communicate. Iron is a mineral whose importance has been recognized for centuries. It forms the core of hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen from the lungs to tissues. Without sufficient iron, the body cannot transport oxygen effectively, leading to fatigue and weakness. Zinc, though needed in small amounts, is involved in wound healing, immune defense, and growth. Iodine, drawn from the sea and present in salt, is necessary for thyroid hormones, which regulate metabolism. Selenium, though required only in trace amounts, protects cells from oxidative damage and supports thyroid function. Each mineral, no matter how small the amount, carries responsibilities that sustain health in ways both direct and subtle. Deficiencies in micronutrients often appear slowly, quietly, with symptoms that may at first seem minor. A lack of vitamin D may lead to softening of bones, a lack of iron to tiredness, a lack of vitamin A to night blindness. The body signals its needs in whispers before it cries out in louder ways. This is why variety in diet is so important. A diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, dairy, and varied protein sources provides the spectrum of vitamins and minerals the body requires. No single food provides all, but together they form a complete picture, ensuring that the small but vital needs of the body are met. Micronutrients are also reminders of our connection to the earth. Minerals come from soil and stone, carried upward into plants by roots and water. Vitamins are formed within the living tissues of plants and animals, each one the product of biology shaped by environment. To eat is to draw upon these sources, to carry within us the essence of land, air, water. Micronutrients are not distant abstractions, but traces of the world around us, condensed into forms that sustain life. Though they are small, micronutrients teach us a profound lesson, that even the smallest things matter. A fragment of a vitamin, a grain of a mineral, can determine the difference between health and decline, between balance and imbalance. They are the hidden helpers, the unseen supporters, the subtle essentials. In their quiet way, they allow life to continue smoothly, ensuring that the larger processes of energy, growth, and repair unfold without interruption. In the story of nutrition, macronutrients may be the bold characters, but micronutrients are the quiet voices that guide the plot. They are small, almost invisible, but always present, always necessary. To honor them is to recognize that life depends not only on what is abundant, but also on what is scarce, not only on what is large, but also on what is small. They are the sparks within the machinery, the fine threads in the fabric, the gentle details that complete the whole. Without them, life would falter. With them, it endures in balance, harmony, and quiet strength. 10. Water, the silent nutrient. Water is perhaps the most overlooked of all nutrients, precisely because it is so abundant, so familiar, so woven into every moment of our lives. Unlike food, it carries no calories. It offers no protein, no carbohydrate, no fat, no vitamins, no minerals in the sense of nourishment we often imagine. And yet, without water, life ceases swiftly. It is the medium of existence, the river within us that carries nutrients, removes wastes, regulates temperature, and supports every chemical reaction that sustains the body. In silence and invisibility, water is the nutrient upon which all others depend, the foundation without which no breath, no thought, no motion could continue. The human body is made mostly of water. In adults, it accounts for about 60% of total body weight, though the exact proportion varies with age, sex, and body composition. In newborn infants, it is even higher, close to 70 or 80%, a reminder of how deeply life begins in water. Every cell floats in its own watery environment. Every tissue is bathed in it. Every organ depends upon it. Blood is mostly water, carrying oxygen, glucose, and nutrients to cells. The fluid between cells cushions and protects them. Even within cells, water surrounds proteins and enzymes, allowing them to fold, unfold, and react. Without water, the body is not merely diminished. It is undone, for water is the very environment in which life's processes occur. One of water's most vital roles is as a solvent. Nutrients dissolve in it, travel with it, and enter cells because of it. Minerals like sodium and potassium, sugars like glucose, and amino acids from proteins all move through the bloodstream only because they can dissolve in water. Inside cells, metabolic reactions depend on water as the medium in which molecules meet, collide, and interact. Without this fluidity, the machinery of life would grind to a halt. To drink water is not just to quench thirst, but to replenish the very stage upon which life's chemistry is performed. Water also regulates temperature, an invisible service we rarely notice until it is absent. As the body warms through activity, stress, sweat forms on the skin, evaporating and carrying heat away. This simple mechanism allows humans to maintain a stable internal temperature, protecting delicate organs and ensuring enzymes work within their narrow range. Even the sensation of thirst is part of this regulation, a gentle reminder from the body that balance must be maintained. Too little water, and the system falters. Too much loss without replacement, and the body overheats, dehydrates, and weakens. In this sense, water is the guardian of equilibrium, the silent keeper of balance between heat and coolness, between activity and rest. Beyond temperature, water cushions and protects. It forms the amniotic fluid that surrounds and shelters a developing child in the womb. It lubricates joints, allowing bones to move smoothly without grinding. It moistens the eyes, washes the mouth, clears the nasal passages. It is in the fluid around the brain and spinal cord, protecting them from shock and injury. Even in the quietest moments, water is there as a shield, softening impacts, preserving function, and guarding life with its constant presence. The flow of water in the body is continuous. Each day, water is lost through breath, through sweat, through urine, through digestion. Each day it must be replaced, not only by drinking but also through food. Fruits and vegetables carry high amounts of water, as do soups and broths, even grains once cooked. This replenishment is steady, and the balance is delicate. Too little intake, and signs of dehydration appear. Dry mouth, fatigue, confusion. Too much water, far less common, can also disrupt balance, diluting the sodium and other electrolytes needed for nerve and muscle function. The body, wise and ancient, has evolved systems to keep this balance, adjusting thirst and urine to maintain harmony, but it always relies on a steady supply. In nature, water is both origin and sustenance. Life began in the seas, billions of years ago, where early molecules swam in primordial waters and gradually gave rise to cells. Even now, every living being carries within it the memory of that ocean, reflected in the salt balance of the blood and the water content of tissues. Rivers and lakes, rain and dew, all sustain plants, which in turn sustain animals. Migration patterns, ecosystems, and entire civilizations have been shaped around access to water. It is not simply a nutrient, but a force of life, moving through landscapes and bodies alike, binding the living world together in its ceaseless cycle. Culturally, water has always been revered. It is present in rituals of cleansing, in ceremonies of renewal, in symbols of purity and flow. Ancient peoples settled near rivers, not only for irrigation but for drinking, cooking, and the unseen necessity of health. Wells were dug, aqueducts built, reservoirs created, all to ensure that this most basic of nutrients would never be absent. In every culture, water carries meaning beyond its physical presence. It is life, continuity, refreshment, and rebirth. When we consider water as a nutrient, it becomes clear that it does not nourish in the way we usually imagine, by supplying building blocks or calories. Instead, it nourishes by enabling, by allowing every other nutrient to act, every process to unfold. Carbohydrates could not release energy without water's role in metabolism. Proteins could not fold into their shapes or form enzymes without water's support. Fats could not be transported. Vitamins could not be absorbed. Minerals could not be balanced. Water is the unseen partner in every act of nourishment, the silent nutrient that makes all others possible. Even in rest, water's presence is constant. As we sleep, We breathe out moisture, our cells continue their metabolism, and water quietly shifts within us. In dreams, we may not think of thirst, yet the body continues to adjust, to circulate, to balance. In waking, the first sip of water refreshes not only the mouth but the whole system, restoring what has been gently lost. Each drop, though small, is part of the river that flows through us, part of the cycle that has sustained life for ages. To drink water, then, is to participate in a cycle as old as the earth itself. It is to connect with clouds that rose from oceans, with rains that fell upon soil, with streams that carried minerals into roots, with rivers that carved valleys. Each glass of water carries this history, this vast journey, condensed into a form we can hold, sip, and make part of ourselves. It reminds us that we are not separate from the world, but immersed in it, as dependent on its cycles as the smallest plant or insect. Water may be silent, but it is never still. It moves in us, around us, above us, below us. It is the current that carries life forward, the quiet tide that sustains existence. To honor water as a nutrient is to honor life itself, to recognize that behind every heartbeat, every thought, every moment of being lies the constant presence of this humble, essential element. It asks for nothing but to be replenished, and in return, it gives everything balance, health, endurance, and the possibility of life's gentle continuity. 11. The digestive journey. The journey of food through the human body is one of the most extraordinary stories of nature, a tale that unfolds quietly with every meal. Though often unnoticed, it is a journey filled with transformation, with careful steps that change the simple act of eating into the energy and nourishment that sustain life. Digestion is not abrupt, but patient, not chaotic, but ordered. It is a journey that begins the moment food touches the lips and continues until every usable nutrient has been drawn out, leaving only what must be released. It is a story of pathways, of gentle breakdowns, of hidden labor performed ceaselessly in the background of our existence. It begins in the mouth, the first stage of digestion, where food is greeted not only by teeth, but by saliva. Teeth break food into smaller pieces, increasing the surface area, while saliva moistens and softens. Within this liquid are enzymes, small proteins that act like keys, beginning to unlock the bonds of starch into simpler sugars. Even before swallowing, the transformation has already started. The taste of food, too, is more than pleasure. It signals the body to prepare, to release digestive juices further down the line, to anticipate the arrival of nutrients. Chewing, though seemingly simple, is the first act in a symphony of digestion, turning a bite into something the body can truly begin to work with. Swallowing carries food into the esophagus, a long muscular tube that guides it gently toward the stomach. Muscles contract in waves, moving the food downward regardless of position, whether upright, reclining, or even upside down. This quiet wave of motion, called peristalsis, is one of the many involuntary processes that serve us without need of thought. We eat, we swallow, and the body takes over, ensuring that the journey continues smoothly. Within seconds, the food arrives at the stomach, where another transformation begins. The stomach is a chamber of mixing and breaking down, both mechanical and chemical. Its muscles churn, kneading food into a liquid mixture called chyme. At the same time, glands in the stomach lining release gastric juices, hydrochloric acid, and enzymes that unravel proteins, breaking them into smaller chains. The acid also acts as a barrier, destroying many of the microbes that might enter with food, keeping the body protected. The stomach is not merely a container but a worker, a living vessel where food is transformed from solid and recognizable forms into something that can be absorbed later. Here, the warmth of digestion can be felt as fullness, as heaviness, as the body patiently does its unseen labor. After the stomach, the chyme passes slowly into the small intestine, the true center of digestion and absorption. This long, coiled tube is lined with folds, villi, and microvilli, increasing its surface area to extraordinary levels, so that every particle of food can be touched and absorbed. As chyme enters, it is met with bile from the liver and gallbladder, which emulsifies fats, breaking them into droplets that enzymes can act upon. It is also joined by enzymes from the pancreas, which dismantle carbohydrates, proteins, and fats into their simplest units: glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, and glycerol. By this stage, food is no longer what it once was. Bread, fruit, vegetables, meat, all have been reduced to their smallest parts, ready to be drawn into the blood and carried to cells. Absorption occurs quietly, without fanfare. Glucose slips into the bloodstream, raising energy levels, traveling first to the liver for regulation, and then to the rest of the body. Amino acids are absorbed, ready to be rebuilt into proteins unique to human needs. Fats, carried in special transport particles, make their way into the lymphatic system before entering the bloodstream. Vitamins and minerals, too, are absorbed here, their paths determined by solubility and need. Water follows along, maintaining fluid balance. Every nutrient, large or small, is carried into the body not all at once, but gradually, in waves, ensuring that absorption is steady and balanced. The small intestine's length ensures that there is time and space for all of this. Stretching about 6 meters in adults, it allows the chyme to move slowly, to linger where needed, to be fully processed. Each fold, each villus, each microscopic projection increases the surface, ensuring efficiency. The body spares nothing in its effort to gather nourishment. By the end of this journey, most nutrients have been absorbed, leaving behind a residue of fiber, water, and substances the body cannot use. This residue then passes into the large intestine, or colon, where a different kind of process unfolds. Here, water is reabsorbed, compacting the waste. At the same time, the large intestine becomes a place of partnership with bacteria. Trillions of microbes live within it, forming what is often called the gut microbiome. These bacteria feed on the fibers and remnants humans cannot digest, producing beneficial compounds in return, such as short-chain fatty acids that support health. They also help synthesize certain vitamins, adding their contribution to the story of nutrition. Far from being passive, the colon is alive with microbial activity, a reminder that the human body is not alone but part of a larger ecosystem of life. Eventually, what remains is eliminated, completing the digestive journey. What began as food recognizable by sight, smell, and taste has been transformed, absorbed, used, and returned. It is a cycle repeated daily, quietly, without need for thought or effort, yet essential to survival. The journey of digestion is not dramatic but steady, not rushed but thorough, a perfect example of nature's patience. When we pause to reflect on digestion, it becomes clear that it is more than a mechanical process. It is a bridge between the outside world and the inside, between what is not yet part of us and what becomes part of us. Every bite taken begins this journey. Every sip of water joins it. Every meal is transformed into the body's own substance. Digestion is not only about breaking down, but also about uniting, about drawing the world into the self in a way that sustains life. This journey also reminds us of continuity. The same processes that unfold in us today unfolded in our ancestors and will continue in future generations. They unfolded in other animals too, each adapted to its diet, the multiple stomachs of cows for breaking down grass, the simple stomachs of carnivores for digesting meat, the long intestines of herbivores for extracting nutrients from plants. Each digestive system tells a story of adaptation, of the relationship between body and food. In humans, the story is one of omnivory, of flexibility, of the ability to draw nourishment from many sources. The digestive journey is, in its essence, the quiet transformation of nature into life. A grain of wheat becomes glucose in the blood. A piece of fruit becomes vitamin C in the tissues. A spoonful of oil becomes part of a cell membrane. Nothing remains as it was. Everything is changed, absorbed, and repurposed. It is this alchemy, performed daily and silently, that allows the human body to endure, to act, to think, to dream. And so, each time we eat, we participate in this journey. Each time we chew, swallow, and digest, we become part of a cycle that links earth to body, food to thought, substance to energy. It is a journey so familiar we rarely notice it, yet so profound that without it, nothing else could continue. The digestive journey is the story of transformation, of connection, of life itself quietly unfolding within us. 12. From food to fuel. Cellular metabolism. When food completes its journey through digestion and its nutrients enter the bloodstream, the story of nourishment is not finished. It is only beginning another chapter, one that unfolds not in the stomach or intestines, but within the very heart of life itself, the cell. Every cell is a small, self-contained world, and within it the nutrients from food are transformed into usable energy. This process, called metabolism, is the bridge between what we eat and what we become. It is the silent fire of life, burning gently in every tissue, fueling every thought, every breath, and every step. Metabolism is often described as a series of chemical reactions, but it is more than that. It is the balance between breaking down and building up, between using energy and storing it. It is both destruction and creation, both the dismantling of molecules into simpler forms and the assembly of those forms into new structures. To live is to maintain this balance, to keep metabolism flowing smoothly, neither rushing nor faltering. Every heartbeat, every flicker of nerve, every repair of tissue depends upon it. The first stage of this transformation begins with glucose, the simple sugar that is the primary fuel for most cells. After entering the bloodstream from digestion, glucose moves into cells with the help of insulin, a hormone that acts like a key, unlocking the doors of the cell's membrane. Once inside, glucose undergoes a process called glycolysis, a series of reactions that split it into smaller molecules, releasing a small amount of energy. This energy is captured in the form of a molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the true currency of energy within the body. ATP is not stored in large amounts but is made constantly, spent constantly, a river of energy flowing through cells, enabling their functions from moment to moment. The molecules left after glycolysis are carried into the mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell. Here, in the presence of oxygen, they are broken down further through the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain, releasing far more energy than glycolysis alone. This is aerobic respiration, the process that allows humans and many other organisms to generate large amounts of ATP from each molecule of glucose. The oxygen we breathe is used here, not for the sake of breath itself, but as the final acceptor of electrons, allowing the chain of reactions to continue, allowing energy to flow. In each breath in and out, this connection is present. Oxygen entering, carbon dioxide leaving, the silent rhythm of metabolism sustained. Fats, too, enter metabolism, though by a different path. Stored in adipose tissue as triglycerides, Fats are broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. These molecules, once transported into cells, can be oxidized to produce ATP in mitochondria, yielding more energy per gram than glucose. This is why fats are such efficient stores of energy, dense reserves that the body turns to when glucose is scarce, or when prolonged activity demands endurance. Fat metabolism is slower, but it is steady, supporting the long rhythms of life when quick energy is not enough. Proteins, though not the body's preferred energy source, can also enter metabolism if needed. Amino acids from proteins can be converted into molecules that feed into the citric acid cycle, releasing energy when carbohydrates and fats are insufficient. Yet this process comes at a cost, for proteins are needed as builders and repairers, not as fuel. The body uses them for energy only in times of scarcity, a reminder of their precious role and of the body's adaptability in times of need. Metabolism is not only about breaking down, but also about building. The body uses energy to construct molecules it requires: proteins from amino acids, fats from fatty acids, and glycerol, glycogen from glucose. These stores and structures allow the body to prepare for the future, to repair itself, to grow. This dual nature, breaking down to release energy, building up to store and create, is the essence of metabolism. The two sides are known as catabolism, the breaking down of molecules, and anabolism, the building of new ones. Together, they form a balanced cycle, the yin and yang of life within every cell. The regulation of metabolism is as remarkable as the processes themselves. Hormones act as messengers, guiding the flow of energy according to the body's needs. Insulin encourages cells to take in glucose and store energy. Glucagon, another hormone, signals the release of stored glucose when blood sugar falls. Adrenaline prepares the body for sudden activity, mobilizing energy stores for quick use. Thyroid hormones adjust the overall speed of metabolism, influencing whether energy is spent quickly or slowly. This constant regulation ensures that the body always has enough energy to meet its demands, whether resting quietly or exerting itself in motion. At rest, metabolism continues steadily, powering the basal functions of the body: the beating of the heart, the breathing of the lungs, the maintenance of temperature, the quiet renewal of tissues. This is basal metabolic rate, the minimum energy required for life. When activity is added, metabolism rises, drawing more fuel, more oxygen, more ATP. During sleep, metabolism slows slightly, yet it never ceases. Cells continue their work, repairing, renewing, preparing for the next day. Metabolism is constant, an unbroken flow of transformation that only ends when life itself ends. In a broader sense, metabolism connects us to the cycle of nature. The glucose burned in our cells was once part of a plant, formed through photosynthesis. The oxygen we use was released by green leaves, by algae in oceans, by forests breathing into the sky. The carbon dioxide we exhale returns to the air, to be used again by plants. In this way, metabolism is not only an internal process, but part of the wider cycle of life on Earth, linking every breath, every bite, every step to the balance of the planet. Metabolism also adapts to circumstance. In times of plenty, the body stores energy, building reserves of glycogen and fat. In times of scarcity, it draws upon those stores, shifting from carbohydrate to fat metabolism, and if necessary, to protein. During fasting, metabolism slows to conserve energy. During growth, to support the creation of new tissue. During illness, it shifts to meet the demands of healing. This flexibility is part of survival, a quiet resilience built into the chemistry of life. When we reflect upon cellular metabolism, we are reminded that life is not powered by large dramatic events, but by countless small reactions, billions upon billions each second. Within a single cell, glucose molecules are split, fatty acids oxidized, ATP created and spent. Within a single tissue, oxygen flows in, carbon dioxide flows out, enzymes fold and unfold, electrons move along chains. All of this occurs without sound, without notice, yet together it forms the hum of life, the invisible engine that powers existence. Food becomes fuel, fuel becomes energy, energy becomes thought, movement, warmth, and renewal. The cycle is complete, and yet it never ends, repeating endlessly as long as life endures. The transformation is so constant that we forget it is there, so reliable that we rarely give it thought. But within us, in every moment, metabolism is at work, a silent fire, a hidden current, a ceaseless rhythm of change that sustains the miracle of life. 13. ATP, the spark of life within cells. Within every living cell, in every corner of every tissue, there is a single molecule that carries energy more directly than any other. This molecule is ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, often called the energy currency of life. While food provides the raw materials, while glucose and fats and proteins are broken down through metabolism, the energy released is not used immediately in its raw form. Instead, it is captured and stored within ATP, ready to be spent at a moment's notice. Like a coin minted from raw metal, ATP is a refined and usable form of energy, small enough to be carried everywhere, versatile enough to serve every function of the cell. It is the spark of life within cells, the molecule that makes movement, thought, and renewal possible. The structure of ATP is deceptively simple. It is composed of 3 parts: adenine, a nitrogen-containing base, ribose, a sugar molecule. It is these phosphates that give ATP its special power. The bonds between them, especially the bond connecting the final phosphate, hold significant energy. When the bond is broken, energy is released, and ATP becomes ADP, adenosine diphosphate, with 2 phosphates. This release of energy is like the striking of a spark, immediate and usable, fueling countless processes within the cell. To restore ATP, ADP can be recharged with another phosphate, ready to release energy again. This cycle of charging and discharging occurs endlessly, millions of times each day in every cell, ensuring a constant supply of energy. Every action in the body depends on ATP. When muscles contract, it is ATP that allows the fibers of actin and myosin to slide past one another, creating motion. When nerves send signals, it is ATP that pumps ions across membranes, maintaining the gradients that allow electrical impulses to flow. When new molecules are built, when proteins are assembled, when DNA is copied, ATP supplies the energy to drive the chemical reactions. Even at rest, when the body is still and the mind drifts in sleep, ATP is being consumed to maintain temperature, repair tissues, and sustain the beating of the heart. Without ATP, life would stop not gradually but instantly, for it is the direct supplier of energy to every function. The creation of ATP is a remarkable story in itself. Much of it occurs in the mitochondria, the tiny organelles within cells, often described as powerhouses. Within their folded inner membranes, the products of glucose and fat breakdown are processed through the citric acid cycle and electron transport chain. Electrons are passed along carriers, protons are pumped across membranes, and a gradient is established, like water behind a dam. As protons flow back across the membrane, the energy of this movement is captured by an enzyme called ATP synthase, which attaches phosphate groups to ADP, creating ATP. This process, oxidative phosphorylation, is one of the most efficient and elegant systems in biology, producing vast amounts of ATP from each molecule of fuel. The scale of ATP production and use is staggering. A single cell may contain billions of ATP molecules, yet they are used so quickly that each one is recycled thousands of times a day. In total, the human body turns over its entire weight in ATP each day, producing and consuming it in an unending cycle. This means that at any moment, the ATP in the body is only enough to last a few minutes, and survival depends on the continuous renewal of this molecule. It is a reminder of how dynamic life is, how energy is not stored passively but constantly flowing, captured, spent, and recaptured in the dance of metabolism. ATP is not only about providing energy, it is also about regulation. The levels of ATP, ADP, and AMP within cells act as signals, informing the body about its energy status. When ATP is abundant, anabolic processes, such as building new molecules, are favored. When ATP falls and ADP or AMP rises, catabolic processes, which break down fuel for more ATP, are stimulated. This self-regulation ensures balance, preventing waste and maintaining steady supply. In this way, ATP is not just fuel but also a messenger, guiding metabolism with its constant presence. The importance of ATP can be seen in every corner of biology. In plants, ATP produced in chloroplasts during photosynthesis stores the energy of sunlight, later used to build sugars. In animals, ATP fuels everything from the beating of wings to the pumping of hearts. In microbes, ATP drives locomotion, replication, and adaptation. Across all forms of life, the role is the same. ATP is the universal carrier, the shared spark that makes living processes possible. It is a unifying thread, reminding us that despite differences of form and function, all life relies on the same small molecule for its energy needs. Though invisible, ATP is also linked to our experience of vitality. When ATP production is smooth and steady, we feel energized, alert, and capable. When it falters, through illness, lack of nutrients, or disruption of mitochondria, fatigue appears, a heaviness of body and mind. On a microscopic level, this fatigue reflects a shortage of ATP, the cells unable to fuel their functions as efficiently as they should. Thus, our sense of energy is not an abstraction, but a direct reflection of the molecular spark carried by ATP. Culturally and symbolically, energy has always fascinated humans, from the fire that warmed ancient caves to the power of the sun. In a way, ATP is the fire within, the biochemical flame that burns without smoke or ash, endlessly renewing itself, endlessly sustaining life. It is not visible like fire, not tangible like food, yet it is the true expression of energy within the body, the final form of fuel, the immediate source of life's movement. Reflecting on ATP is reflecting on the subtlety of life. A molecule so small it cannot be seen with the naked eye is also so vital that without it, existence would cease in an instant. It is a spark, a currency, a messenger, a unifying thread. It is the constant background hum of energy, present in every breath, every heartbeat, every flicker of thought. Though we may never feel it directly, though we may never see it, ATP is always there, the unseen force that turns food into fuel, fuel into motion, and motion into the quiet rhythm of life. And so, the story of ATP is the story of life's spark, small but immeasurable in importance. It is the molecule that connects the sunlit leaves of plants to the movement of muscles, that binds the cycles of metabolism to the simplest gestures of daily life. Each second, it is created and spent, again and again, a flame that never rests. To know ATP is to glimpse the hidden heart of energy, the true spark within cells, the essence of what makes life alive. 14. Blood sugar and energy balance. Within the quiet circulation of the human body, there is a substance that holds an especially delicate importance: glucose, the simple sugar that serves as the body's preferred source of immediate energy. Flowing in the bloodstream, glucose represents a direct line between nourishment and vitality, a steady current of fuel that sustains the brain, muscles, and every living cell. Yet this current cannot be left to drift uncontrolled. Too little glucose and the body falters into weakness, confusion, or collapse. Too much, and the balance of systems begins to fray, leading to damage that accumulates over time. For this reason, blood sugar is carefully regulated, kept within narrow limits by a web of hormones and processes. This regulation is one of the most elegant examples of homeostasis, the body's quiet commitment to balance, ensuring that energy is always available, never wasted, never overwhelming. Glucose enters the bloodstream primarily after meals, absorbed from the small intestine as carbohydrates are broken down into their simplest forms. With each bite of bread, each grain of rice, each piece of fruit, glucose flows into the blood, raising its concentration. Left unchecked, these levels could rise too high, but the body is never unprepared. The pancreas, a small but powerful organ nestled behind the stomach, monitors glucose levels constantly. When glucose rises after eating, the pancreas releases insulin, a hormone that acts like a key, opening doors on the surface of cells so that glucose may enter. Muscles draw it in for fuel or for storage as glycogen. The liver takes it up as well, storing some and releasing it later when needed. In this way, insulin lowers blood sugar back toward its steady state, moving fuel into the tissues where it can be used. At times when food is not present, such as during fasting, sleep, or between meals, blood sugar naturally begins to fall. Yet the body cannot allow it to drop too low, for cells, and especially the brain, require a constant supply of glucose. In these moments, the pancreas provides balance in another direction, releasing a different hormone called glucagon. Glucagon signals the liver to break down stored glycogen into glucose and release it into the blood, replenishing the supply. If glycogen stores run low, the liver can even produce new glucose from amino acids and other sources, a process called gluconeogenesis. Through these mechanisms, blood sugar is raised back into the safe range, preventing collapse and sustaining the body through lean hours. This constant give and take between insulin and glucagon, between storing and releasing, between rising and falling, creates a rhythm that continues day and night. The body never stops monitoring, never stops adjusting, keeping blood sugar within a narrow band that supports life. This balance is so precise that even slight deviations are quickly corrected, often without our awareness. We may feel hunger or a sudden burst of energy or a dip in alertness, but beneath these sensations lies a world of silent regulation, hormones, and enzymes working in harmony to keep us steady. For the brain, this regulation is especially important. Unlike muscles, which can turn to fat metabolism during scarcity, the brain relies almost exclusively on glucose for fuel. It consumes a disproportionate share of the body's supply, about 1/5 of all energy used, even though it is small in mass. Every thought, memory, and dream is powered by glucose flowing steadily into neurons. Too little glucose, and confusion, dizziness, or even loss of consciousness can result. Too much, and delicate tissues are strained. This is why the body defends glucose balance so fiercely, for without it, both mind and body would falter. Energy balance is not only about glucose, but about the harmony between intake and expenditure. Each day, the body takes in energy from food and spends it through metabolism, movement, and maintenance. When intake and expenditure are equal, weight remains stable, reserves are steady, and the system is in equilibrium. When intake exceeds expenditure, the body stores the excess, first as glycogen, then as fat. When expenditure exceeds intake, Reserves are drawn upon, glycogen broken down, fat mobilized. These adjustments are natural, part of the body's design. But the long-term balance matters. Over time, consistent excess or deficiency can shift health in significant ways, showing how delicate the relationship between food, energy, and life truly is. The sensations of hunger and satiety are part of this regulation. Hormones like ghrelin, produced in the stomach, signal hunger when food is absent. Leptin, produced by fat tissue, signals fullness and adequacy, discouraging further intake. Insulin itself also influences appetite, as do many other signals traveling between the gut and brain. These messages ensure that energy balance is not only chemical but also behavioral, guiding us toward eating when necessary and resting when enough has been consumed. Though modern abundance can sometimes blur these signals, their original role was survival, ensuring that energy intake matched energy need. In nature, this balance has always been critical. Animals eat when food is available, store energy when possible, and draw upon reserves when scarcity comes. Humans, too, evolved in this rhythm, feasting when harvests or hunts were successful, enduring fasting in leaner times. The systems of blood sugar regulation, hunger, and energy storage developed as guardians against unpredictability. Today, even when food is abundant, these systems remain, quietly working to maintain balance regardless of circumstance. They are ancient systems, honed by time, carried forward in every human life. When blood sugar regulation falters, the consequences remind us of its importance. Too much glucose in the blood, sustained over time, can strain organs, vessels, and nerves. Too little, too sudden, can cause immediate danger, depriving the brain of its fuel. Yet in most moments, for most people, the system works flawlessly, adjusting invisibly, keeping the flow steady and reliable. This reliability is why we can think, move, sleep, and dream without constant awareness of the fuel that sustains us. It is why energy feels effortless, even though the balance is maintained by a network of vigilant processes. On a deeper level, blood sugar and energy balance reveal a truth about life, that existence depends not on extremes, but on moderation, not on abundance alone, but on regulation. Too much and too little are both harmful. It is the middle ground that sustains health. The body, in its quiet wisdom, seeks this balance every moment, drawing upon the delicate interplay of hormones, enzymes, and tissues. In its steadiness, it mirrors the larger rhythms of nature, the rise and fall of day and night, the ebb and flow of tides, the cycle of seasons. Balance is not stillness but motion, not absence of change but the presence of harmony within change. To reflect on blood sugar and energy balance is to reflect on the subtlety of life itself. Every breath, every heartbeat, every step depends on this invisible regulation, this constant stream of glucose rising and falling within safe limits. Every moment of clarity, every gesture of strength, every quiet night of sleep is supported by it. Though unseen, it is always there, the hidden current of fuel flowing through the body, never too much, never too little, always enough. It is the body's promise to itself, the silent assurance that life will continue in balance, sustained by the steady river of energy within. 15. Storing energy for tomorrow. The human body is not only a consumer of energy in the moment, but also a keeper of reserves, a careful planner for times when food may not be immediately available. This ability to store energy is one of the most remarkable features of life, for it allows survival not just in times of abundance, but also in times of scarcity. Each meal does more than fuel the present. It also contributes to reserves tucked quietly away, ready to be drawn upon tomorrow, or in a week, or in a season of hunger. These stores are invisible to the eye, hidden within cells and tissues, but they form a vital safety net, ensuring that life is never left entirely without fuel. The primary form of short-term energy storage is glycogen, a substance made of glucose molecules, linked together in branching chains. Glycogen can be thought of as the body's pantry, a small but accessible supply of sugar stored mainly in the liver and muscles. In the liver, glycogen serves as a regulator of blood sugar, broken down when needed and released into the bloodstream to keep glucose levels steady between meals or during sleep. In muscles, glycogen is stored locally, to be used during activity, fueling contractions and movements when demand suddenly rises. These stores are limited, enough to sustain only hours of intense activity or a day of fasting, but they are crucial for bridging the gap between intake and need. Beyond glycogen lies the larger, longer-term store of energy, fat. While glycogen is quick to use but small in quantity, fat is slower to access but vast in capacity. Fat is stored in adipose tissue throughout the body, beneath the skin and around organs, in amounts that can sustain life for weeks or even months if necessary. Each gram of fat contains more than twice the energy of carbohydrates or proteins, making it an efficient, concentrated reserve. When meals are skipped, when activity increases, when scarcity arises, the body turns to these fat stores, breaking them down into fatty acids that can be used by most tissues as fuel. It is in this way that fat, often misunderstood, reveals its true purpose, not as excess but as preservation, a living memory of nourishment past, carried forward into the future. The act of storing energy is not wasteful but wise. Throughout human history, food availability was never guaranteed. Seasons shifted, harvests failed, hunts were uncertain. In such conditions, those who could store energy efficiently survived when others could not. This ancient reality shaped the human body, giving it the ability to save, to plan, to endure. Even today, in times of abundance, these same systems remain, carrying out their work quietly, keeping reserves ready for whatever tomorrow may bring. Energy storage is also flexible, responding to circumstance. When intake is plentiful, insulin encourages the body to store energy, converting glucose into glycogen, and beyond that, into fat. When intake is low, glucagon and other hormones signal the release of these reserves, mobilizing them to keep the body supplied. This balance ensures that energy is never entirely absent, that the flow of fuel continues, even when meals are irregular. The body shifts smoothly from one source to another, from glucose to glycogen, from glycogen to fat, adjusting as needed, always maintaining continuity. Proteins, too, can serve as energy in times of great scarcity, though this comes at a cost. When both glycogen and fat are insufficient, the body begins to break down its own proteins, using amino acids to create glucose through gluconeogenesis. This process provides fuel for the brain and other tissues that require glucose, but it weakens the very structures that proteins sustain. It is a last resort, a reminder of the body's resilience, but also of the importance of maintaining adequate nourishment. Energy storage, in its normal forms, is what prevents the body from having to take this path. The rhythm of storing and releasing energy mirrors the rhythm of daily life. After meals, glucose rises, and the body sets aside some of it for later, filling glycogen stores, and if surplus remains, storing fat. Between meals, during activity, or in the night, these stores are quietly tapped, glucose released from glycogen, fatty acids drawn from adipose tissue. This flow is constant, like the tide, rising and falling with intake and need, always guided by the body's quiet wisdom. In nature, energy storage is seen everywhere. Bears accumulate fat through summer and autumn, preparing to hibernate through winter without food. Migratory birds build reserves before long journeys across oceans and continents, using fat to fuel their wings over endless distances. Seeds contain oils and starches, providing the energy needed for a new plant to sprout and grow when the time is right. In each case, the principle is the same: to store energy when it is available, to use it when it is needed, to survive not only today but tomorrow and beyond. For humans, the cultural practices of food preservation mirror this biological truth. Long before refrigeration or modern storage, people salted, dried, fermented, and stored foods to carry nourishment across seasons. Grains were harvested and kept in granaries, roots stored in cellars, oils sealed in jars. Just as the body sets aside glycogen and fat, societies set aside food, preparing for the leaner days of winter or drought. These practices reflect the same instinct as energy storage within the body: the recognition that life depends not only on what is consumed today, but on what is held for tomorrow. Energy storage also affects how we feel. A meal rich in carbohydrates fills glycogen stores, leaving us with energy for activity. A diet that includes healthy fats provides longer-term reserves, ensuring endurance and stability. When stores are depleted, we may feel tired, hungry, or weak, signals from the body that reserves are running low. When stores are adequate, we feel steady, capable, prepared. These sensations are not abstract, but reflections of the body's internal balance, the quiet dialogue between intake, storage, and use. To reflect on energy storage is to recognize the patience of the body. It does not live only in the present moment, but prepares for the future, always keeping something aside, always guarding against uncertainty. Glycogen is the pantry stocked for the day, fat the cellar filled for the season. Both are silent, invisible, and yet always present, sustaining life not only when food is before us, but when it is absent. They remind us that nourishment is not only about satisfaction in the moment, but about survival across time. In the end, storing energy for tomorrow is a story of continuity. It is the link between past meals and future needs, between abundance and scarcity, between the cycles of nature and the rhythms of the body. It is a reminder that life is not lived in isolation but in flow, always moving, always preparing, always adapting. To eat today is to nourish tomorrow, to store for the future, to carry forward the possibility of life. Energy, in this way, is never wasted but always transformed, always preserved, always ready to be called upon when the moment arrives. 16. The quiet guardians. Vitamins in action. In the vast and intricate story of nutrition, vitamins occupy a special place. They are required in amounts so small they can scarcely be measured without delicate instruments. Yet their absence can bring the body into imbalance with startling effect. They are not sources of calories or direct energy. They do not provide the bulk of tissue or the strength of structure. Instead, they are quiet guardians, subtle companions to countless processes that keep life moving with harmony. Without them, the body's great symphony of metabolism falters, as though instruments fall silent, leaving the melody incomplete. With them, the music continues effortlessly, each note balanced, each process sustained. Vitamins are organic compounds, meaning they come from living matter, and they are classified into two broad families: water-soluble and fat-soluble. This distinction shapes everything about them: how they are absorbed, how they are stored, and how often they must be replenished. Water-soluble vitamins, such as the B-complex group and vitamin C, dissolve easily in water. They are absorbed into the bloodstream during digestion, but because they are not stored in large amounts, they must be replenished regularly. Fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K require fat for absorption, and they are stored in the body's fatty tissues and liver, available for longer periods of time. This simple difference reflects their distinct rhythms. Some come and go quickly, others linger, like quiet guardians, standing watch for days or weeks. Vitamin A is one of the oldest known to science, and one of the most essential for vision. Within the eye, it forms part of the molecules that detect light, enabling us to see in dimness and in brightness. Without it, the world fades at night, the shadows no longer yielding to sight, but its guardianship extends beyond the eyes. Vitamin A also supports the skin, the body's first shield against the outside world, and strengthens the immune system, preparing it to respond to challenges with resilience. In foods, it appears in two forms, as retinol, found in animal sources like liver, milk, and eggs, and as beta-carotene, the orange pigment of carrots, sweet potatoes, and pumpkins, which the body can convert into active vitamin A. Through both forms, this guardian keeps watch over sight, skin, and defense. Vitamin D is sometimes called the sunshine vitamin, for it is formed in the skin when sunlight falls upon it. Unlike most vitamins, it can be created by the body itself, yet it remains essential because not everyone receives enough sunlight to produce it in sufficient amounts. Its role is quiet but foundational. It regulates calcium and phosphorus, ensuring that bones harden and remain strong, that muscles contract smoothly, and that nerves carry signals without interruption. A deficiency in vitamin D leads to bones that soften and weaken, a reminder of how much strength depends upon this unseen guardian. In northern regions, where sunlight is scarce in winter, foods such as fish, fortified milk, or supplements become necessary allies, bringing light into the body even when the sky is gray. Vitamin E is another quiet protector, known for its role as an antioxidant. It guards cell membranes against damage from free radicals, those restless molecules that arise naturally from metabolism or environmental stress. By neutralizing them, vitamin E preserves the integrity of cells, especially in delicate tissues like the skin, lungs, and heart. It is found in nuts, seeds, and plant oils, subtle foods that carry within them the power to protect the body from unseen harm. Its guardianship is not dramatic, not noticeable in daily sensation, but it is steady, reducing wear and tear, keeping tissues supple and resilient. Vitamin K plays a different but equally vital role. It ensures that blood can clot properly, that wounds can heal without excessive bleeding. Within the liver, vitamin K helps produce proteins that form the clotting process, a cascade of reactions that seal injuries with quiet precision. Without it, even the smallest cut could become dangerous, for the body would lack the tools to stop the flow. Beyond clotting, vitamin K also supports bone health, guiding calcium into the right places, strengthening the skeleton silently. Green leafy vegetables such as spinach, kale, and broccoli are rich sources, their deep colors concealing the guardian within. The water-soluble vitamins tell another part of the story, each one small yet indispensable. Vitamin C, familiar to many, is more than an old remedy for scurvy. It is essential for collagen production, the protein that binds tissues together, forming the scaffolding of skin, tendons, and vessels. It strengthens the immune system, helping the body respond to infection. And like vitamin E, it serves as an antioxidant, protecting against oxidative stress. Fruits and vegetables, oranges, berries, peppers, and leafy greens are its natural carriers, offering freshness that keeps tissues whole and defenses strong. The B-complex vitamins, though grouped together, each have their own unique guardianship. Thiamine, or bone, helps cells convert glucose into energy, particularly important for nerves in the brain. Riboflavin, or B2, plays a role in energy metabolism, and in protecting the body from oxidative damage. Niacin, or B3, supports the production of energy at the cellular level, ensuring that mitochondria can continue their tireless work. Pantothenic acid, or B5, is needed to synthesize coenzyme A, an essential molecule for metabolism. Pyridoxine, or B6, guides amino acid metabolism and the production of neurotransmitters, bridging protein, nutrition, and mental balance. Biotin, sometimes called vitamin H, helps with the metabolism of fats and carbohydrates, supporting hair, skin, and nails. Folate, or B9, is vital for DNA synthesis and cell division, especially important during pregnancy when new life is forming. Finally, vitamin B12, unique among them, is essential for the production of red blood cells and the health of nerves, a vitamin found only in animal products, and thus especially important for those on plant-based diets to seek from fortified foods or supplements. Each vitamin is like a lantern in the night, illuminating a small but crucial part of the path. On its own, it may seem minor, but together they form a network of guardianship, covering every system of the body, ensuring that energy can be used, tissues repaired, defenses maintained. Their absence, when it occurs, is often felt first as subtle fatigue, as small weaknesses, as slight changes in skin, hair, or mood. Over time, deficiencies grow into louder problems, showing how essential these guardians are. Their presence, when maintained through variety in diet, ensures smoothness, balance, and quiet endurance. Culturally, vitamins became known in recent centuries, but their effects were observed long before. Sailors learned that citrus fruits prevented illness during long voyages. Populations that ate polished rice, but no other variety, saw nervous disorders appear, later traced to thiamine deficiency. Children in sunless regions developed weak bones until vitamin D was understood. These lessons remind us that vitamins, though invisible, are woven into the story of humanity, their guardianship revealed when absent, their importance recognized when restored. To reflect on vitamins is to reflect on the small details of life that matter most. They are not grand or obvious, yet they sustain the very fabric of being. They ask for little, only a varied diet of plants, animals, and natural foods. Yet in return, they give resilience, clarity, and strength. They are quiet guardians, present in colors of fruits, in the green of leaves, in the richness of grains, in the nourishment of dairy and meat. With them, the body thrives. Without them, it falters. In the end, vitamins remind us that life is upheld not only by what is large and abundant, but by what is small and subtle. They are proof that details matter, that even in the smallest doses, the essence of survival can be found. They are the silent companions of every meal, the unseen protectors of every heartbeat, the gentle guardians who work without rest to keep life whole. 17. Minerals. Strength in small quantities. Among the many elements of nutrition, minerals stand as the quiet foundations of life. They are not made by plants or animals, nor are they created by the body itself. They come from the earth, drawn up from soil and water, carried into plants, and pass through the web of life until they reach us. They are as ancient as stone, as constant as the mountains, and yet, within the body, they are dynamic, always moving, always shaping the processes that keep us alive. Needed in amounts that may seem small, minerals nevertheless provide strength, stability, and balance. They are the bones of nutrition, the anchors of function, the silent yet unyielding guardians of health. Calcium is perhaps the most familiar of minerals. Known as the builder of bones and teeth, it gives hardness to the skeleton, turning fragile tissue into a structure that can bear weight, resist pressure, and protect vital organs. More than 99% of the body's calcium is stored in bones, a vast reservoir that serves not only as scaffolding but also as a bank. When the blood requires calcium for other functions, the body draws from this store, always maintaining balance. For calcium is not only about bones, it also allows muscles to contract, including the heart as it beats rhythmically. It allows nerves to send signals, transmitting messages from one cell to another. Without calcium, movement would falter, thought would slow, and the rhythm of the heart would be disrupted. Foods such as dairy products, leafy greens, and fortified grains provide this mineral, each bite carrying the strength of the earth into the body. Magnesium is another mineral, less well known but no less essential. It acts as a cofactor in hundreds of enzymatic reactions, meaning it is the silent partner that enables enzymes to function. Without magnesium, the reactions that break down glucose, that create ATP, that build proteins, would stall. It supports the relaxation of muscles, the steady rhythm of the heart, the balance of blood pressure. It also contributes to bone structure, joining calcium as part of the skeleton's quiet strength. Nuts, seeds, whole grains, and green vegetables carry magnesium, their richness a reflection of the mineral's presence in soil and chlorophyll. Though required in modest amounts, magnesium plays a role so vast that its absence can bring fatigue, weakness, or imbalance in ways that reveal how foundational it truly is. Phosphorus, like calcium, resides largely in bones and teeth, adding hardness and resilience. Yet its role extends beyond structure. Phosphorus forms part of DNA and RNA, the molecules that carry genetic information, making it central to the story of inheritance and renewal. It is also part of ATP, the molecule of energy, meaning that every spark of activity within cells carries phosphorus within it. From thought to movement to healing, phosphorus is there. It is found in protein-rich foods, such as meat, dairy, nuts, and legumes, making it abundant in most diets, a quiet but constant presence in the flow of life. Sodium and potassium form another essential partnership, working together as electrolytes that maintain fluid balance and electrical signaling in the body. Sodium, found in the fluids outside cells, and potassium, concentrated within cells, create gradients that allow nerves to fire, muscles to contract, and fluids to flow where needed. Without this balance, the heart could not beat properly, the brain could not send signals, and cells could not maintain their integrity. Though sodium is often consumed in excess in modern diets, its role is still vital, a reminder that imbalance, not presence, is the true challenge. Potassium, abundant in fruits, vegetables, and legumes, helps counter sodium, lowering blood pressure and supporting muscle and nerve health. Together, sodium and potassium are like the opposing yet harmonious poles of a magnet, creating the conditions for life's quiet electricity. Iron is one of the most ancient and indispensable minerals, known since humanity first worked with metals. In the body, iron carries oxygen, forming the core of hemoglobin in red blood cells. Each hemoglobin molecule holds iron atoms that bind oxygen in the lungs and release it where tissues need fuel. Without iron, oxygen transport falters, leaving the body fatigued, pale, and weak. Iron also plays roles in energy metabolism and immune function, making it essential beyond oxygen alone. Foods such as red meat, beans, lentils, and leafy greens provide iron, though the body absorbs it differently depending on its source. Animal-based iron, called heme iron, is more readily absorbed, while plant-based iron, non-heme, benefits from the presence of vitamin C to enhance its uptake. This interplay of nutrients shows again how minerals rarely act alone, but in harmony with vitamins and other compounds. Zinc is another trace mineral with wide-reaching influence. Though needed only in small amounts, it supports growth, healing, and immunity. It is a cofactor for more than 300 enzymes, shaping processes from DNA synthesis to wound repair. A cut on the skin, healing silently, depends on zinc to knit tissue back together. The immune system, warding off infection, relies on zinc to mount its defenses. Even the senses of taste and smell depend on zinc, subtle reminders of its guardianship, found in meats, shellfish, legumes, and seeds. Zinc is carried quietly into the body, where it serves as an invisible craftsman, repairing, regulating, and sustaining. Iodine, though required in the smallest of amounts, holds a role of enormous importance. It is the key component of thyroid hormones, which regulate metabolism throughout the body. Without iodine, the thyroid cannot produce these hormones, leading to slowed growth, fatigue, and other symptoms of imbalance. In regions where soil is low in iodine, deficiencies were once common. Until iodized, salt became a global solution. This simple practice reflects how even the tiniest of minerals can shape health across entire populations, how the absence of a trace can ripple into vast consequences. Selenium, another trace mineral, protects the body in a different way. As part of antioxidant enzymes, it guards against oxidative stress, reducing damage to cells and tissues. It also supports thyroid function, working alongside iodine to maintain balance. Found in nuts, seafood, and grains, selenium is another reminder that even the smallest details of nutrition are essential. Its guardianship may be subtle, invisible in sensation, but it is steady, ensuring that cells endure, that tissues remain resilient. Each mineral tells a story of balance. Too little, and systems falter. Too much, and they strain. The body walks a fine line, regulating absorption, storage, and excretion to keep levels within safe ranges. Unlike vitamins, minerals cannot be created by life itself. They come only from the earth, from the soil beneath our feet, from the water that flows through rivers and rain. To eat is to draw upon the planet's ancient reserves, to take into the body what was once part of stone and ocean. This connection is humbling, a reminder that we are built not only of living matter but of the elements of the earth itself. To reflect on minerals is to reflect on strength in small quantities. They are the anchors of bones, the sparks of nerves, the carriers of oxygen, the keepers of balance. They are measured in milligrams or micrograms, yet their influence is measured in every heartbeat, every breath, every gesture. They are not loud in their presence, not dramatic in their action, but steady, patient, and enduring. In their quiet way, minerals hold life together, grounding us in the earth even as we move, think, and dream. 18. Nutrition in plants and animals. Nutrition is not unique to humans. It is a universal truth of life, binding together every living thing, from the smallest seedling hidden beneath the soil to the largest animal moving across open landscapes. Each organism has its own way of acquiring energy and matter, each one adapted to its environment, each one finding nourishment according to its design. When we speak of nutrition in plants and animals, we are speaking of the varied strategies that life has shaped across countless generations, the methods of drawing sustenance from the world and converting it into the quiet force of survival. It is a story of diversity, yet also of connection, for whether in leaf or muscle, in root or nerve, the same basic needs exist: to take in energy, to transform it, to use it for growth, repair, and endurance. Plants, in their stillness, have perhaps the most remarkable strategy of all. They are autotrophs, self-feeders, capable of creating their own food through photosynthesis. With sunlight as their source of energy, carbon dioxide as their raw material, and water as their medium. Plants weave simple sugars that sustain not only themselves but the entire chain of life that depends upon them. Within the green tissues of leaves, chlorophyll captures the energy of sunlight, setting off reactions that split water molecules, releasing oxygen into the air while binding hydrogen with carbon dioxide to form glucose. This simple sugar then becomes the basis for starches, fibers, oils, and countless compounds. It is from this quiet process, repeated endlessly across forests, fields, and oceans, that life draws its primary nourishment. Every bite of food, whether plant or animal, traces back to photosynthesis, to the green factories of leaves and algae that capture sunlight and turn it into sustenance. Plants, however, are not passive in their nutrition. Beyond photosynthesis, they draw minerals from the soil through their roots, absorbing calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, and trace elements like zinc and iron. These minerals travel upward through stems into leaves and seeds, becoming part of the plant's structure and function. Water carries these nutrients through a vascular system of xylem and phloem, much like the circulatory system in animals, ensuring that each part of the plant receives what it needs. Even without movement or a nervous system, plants show remarkable intelligence in how they nourish themselves. Roots grow toward water, leaves turn toward sunlight, stomata open and close to balance gas exchange. Their nutrition is silent, slow, but exquisitely tuned to survival. Animals, unlike plants, cannot create their own food from sunlight. They are heterotrophs, dependent upon consuming other organisms for energy. This dependence has shaped an astonishing diversity of feeding strategies. Herbivores graze on grasses, browse on leaves, or feed on seeds and fruits, drawing their energy from plants. Carnivores pursue prey, consuming flesh that has itself been nourished by plants further down the chain. Omnivores, like humans, blend both strategies, able to draw energy from plants and animals alike. Each feeding style is matched by adaptations of body and behavior. The flat molars of herbivores for grinding plants, the sharp teeth of carnivores for tearing flesh, the varied dentition of omnivores for a wide diet. The digestive systems of animals reflect their nutritional strategies. Cows, deer, and other ruminants have multi-chambered stomachs that allow them to ferment tough grasses with the help of microbes, breaking down cellulose that would otherwise be indigestible. Birds have crops and gizzards, grinding seeds with swallowed stones. Carnivores, like cats, have shorter digestive tracts, suited for digesting protein and fat efficiently. Humans, with their moderate-length intestines and flexible enzymes, stand between, able to handle grains, fruits, vegetables, and animal foods alike. In each case, the body's structure tells the story of its nutrition, the inner landscape shaped by what must be consumed for survival. Animals also depend on the nutrients that plants create or accumulate. The carbohydrates of grains and fruits, the proteins of legumes, the fats of nuts and seeds, all begin with the work of photosynthesis and mineral absorption. Even when animals eat other animals, the chain still leads back to plants. A lion eats an antelope that has grazed on grass. A bird eats a worm that has consumed decaying leaves. The ultimate source remains the same: the quiet work of plants, transforming sunlight into matter. In this way, plants and animals are partners in the cycle of nutrition, each one supporting the other, each one contributing to the balance of ecosystems. Micronutrients, too, flow through this cycle. Plants provide vitamins like C, K, and folate, while animals supply B12, vitamin D, and easily absorbed iron. Together they complete the spectrum of human nutrition, showing how varied diets arose not by accident but by necessity. Cultures across the world have balanced plant and animal foods, each combination designed to provide the full array of nutrients. Lentils and rice, beans and corn, fish and greens, milk and grains. These traditions reflect the partnership of plant and animal nutrition, a balance that has sustained humanity for millennia. Beyond simple nourishment, plants and animals also engage in deeper exchanges. Pollinators like bees consume nectar while spreading pollen, ensuring the reproduction of flowers. Fruit-eating animals carry seeds away from parent plants, dispersing them to new soil. In return, plants provide food rich in sugars, fats, and proteins, designed to attract and reward. This mutualism, this sharing of nutrition, binds ecosystems together, making survival a collective story rather than an individual one. Nutrition in nature is never isolated. It is always shared, always part of a web of giving and receiving. Even microorganisms have their role in this story. In the soil, bacteria and fungi break down organic matter, releasing minerals that plants can absorb. In animal guts, microbes assist digestion, fermenting fibers, synthesizing vitamins, and maintaining balance. In oceans, phytoplankton, tiny plant-like organisms, create sugars from sunlight, feeding the smallest fish and, through them, the largest whales. Life at every level contributes to the cycle of nutrition, from the invisible to the immense. For humans, reflecting on nutrition in plants and animals is also reflecting on our place in this cycle. We are not separate but connected, dependent on the photosynthesis of plants, on the fertility of soil, on the presence of animals that balance ecosystems. Every meal is a link in this chain, every bite a reminder of the interdependence that sustains life. Nutrition is not only about what enters the body, but about the relationships between species, between earth and sky, between sun and soil. To see nutrition in this broader way is to see it not merely as a personal necessity, but as part of the fabric of life. Plants, rooted and silent, create the foundation. Animals, mobile and varied, build upon it. Together they form a cycle that has endured for countless ages, a cycle in which we ourselves participate with every breath and every meal. This cycle is not only biological but also poetic, a rhythm of giving and receiving, of growth and renewal, of life feeding life in quiet continuity. In the end, nutrition in plants and animals is not two separate stories but one shared tale. Plants, with their gift of creation, provide. Animals, with their need for movement and action, consume and return. Both are sustained. Both sustain others. It is this exchange, this unbroken cycle, that allows life to persist, weaving together the stillness of leaves and the movement of wings, the silence of roots, and the call of voices. It is the story of life's nourishment, simple yet profound, eternal in its quiet rhythm. 19. Human nutrition. Across cultures, human nutrition is not simply a matter of biology, but also of history, geography, and tradition. Across thousands of years, people have drawn upon what their lands and waters provided, shaping diets that reflect both necessity and creativity. Each culture carries within its food traditions a story of adaptation, of survival, and of meaning. Nutrition, though grounded in universal needs, has found expression in countless unique ways, each one a reflection of human ingenuity and of the bond between communities and the natural world around them. In Asia, rice has long stood as one of the central foods of life. In vast flooded paddies, people cultivated rice not only as a source of energy, but also as the anchor of meals. Paired with vegetables, fish, or small portions of meat, rice provided steady carbohydrates, while legumes like soybeans contributed protein in the form of tofu, tempeh, and miso. Fermentation became an art, both preserving food and enhancing nutrition, as seen in kimchi, soy sauce, and pickled vegetables. Tea, too, became not only a beverage but a cultural ritual, bringing hydration and antioxidants, calming body and mind alike. The diet was shaped by the land, but also by centuries of refinement, creating balance and harmony on the plate. In the Middle East and Mediterranean, wheat was the foundation. Baked into flatbreads or loaves, it paired with lentils, chickpeas, and beans to provide complete proteins. Olive oil became the source of fat, rich in monounsaturated oils and carrying with it flavors that defined the region. Fresh fruits, such as figs, dates, and pomegranates, offered sweetness and vitamins, while herbs and spices added not only taste, but medicinal qualities. Fish from the Mediterranean Sea, lamb and goat from pastures, and dairy from sheep and cows completed the picture. What emerged was a pattern of eating rich in plants, supported by modest amounts of animal foods, a diet that has long been recognized for its balance and endurance. In the Americas, maize stood at the heart of nutrition. Cultures from the Aztecs to the Maya and beyond relied upon corn in its many forms. Tortillas, tamales, porridges, and breads. Paired with beans, maize created a complete protein, sustaining populations across vast regions. Squash, peppers, and tomatoes grew alongside, forming the trio often called the Three Sisters, a combination of crops that complemented one another both in agriculture and in nutrition. Potatoes in the Andes became another foundation, grown in countless varieties and providing carbohydrates, fiber, and minerals to highland communities. From these foods came not only nourishment but also identity, as maize and potatoes became symbols of culture as much as sustenance. In Africa, diversity of environments created diversity of diets. Millet, sorghum, and teff formed the grains of choice in many regions, ground into porridges or breads. Cassava, yams, and plantains provided starch, while legumes such as cowpeas and peanuts contributed protein and fat. Leafy greens and wild fruits enriched meals with vitamins and minerals. In coastal areas, fish added another source of protein, while pastoral peoples relied on milk and meat from cattle, goats, and camels. Across the continent, spices and cooking methods varied, but the principle was the same. Meals built upon local crops, balanced with what the land and water offered, shaped into traditions that carried both sustenance and meaning. In Europe, climates and resources shaped varied patterns of nutrition. Northern regions, with shorter growing seasons, relied heavily on preserved foods, salted fish, cured meats, root vegetables, and hardy grains, such as rye and barley. Dairy was central, with cheese and butter becoming concentrated forms of nourishment that could be stored and transported. In southern Europe, the Mediterranean pattern prevailed, with olives, grapes, wheat, and fresh produce forming the heart of meals. In every region, traditions of preservation ensured survival through winters and lean times, whether through fermentation, drying, salting, or smoking. Food was not only nourishment but also continuity, a way to carry energy across seasons. Across all cultures, nutrition became interwoven with ritual and meaning. Meals were not merely biological events but social gatherings, opportunities for families and communities to come together. The preparation of food carried traditions passed down through generations, recipes that preserved knowledge of balance and flavor. Feasting and fasting became part of spiritual life, times to celebrate abundance or to reflect in restraint. In every culture, food carried symbolism: rice as purity, bread as life, corn as creation, milk as renewal. Nutrition, in this way, became more than survival. It became identity, connection, and memory. The movement of people across the globe also shaped nutrition. Trade routes carried spices, grains, and fruits far from their origins. The Silk Road brought rice and tea from East Asia to distant lands. The Columbian exchange carried maize, potatoes, tomatoes, and cacao from the Americas to Europe, Africa, and Asia, changing diets worldwide. In return, wheat, sugar, and livestock crossed oceans, reshaping the patterns of nourishment for countless peoples. These exchanges enriched diets but also introduced imbalances, as foods once rare became abundant in unfamiliar ways. The global story of nutrition is one of both enrichment and challenge, as the abundance of new foods brought both opportunity and complexity. Modern times have added another layer to this story. Industrialization, preservation, and global trade mean that foods once limited by geography are now available across the world. Rice, maize, wheat, and potatoes are staples not of regions alone but of the entire globe. Fruits and vegetables can be shipped across oceans, meats preserved in countless ways, processed foods created to last indefinitely. This abundance has brought choice and variety, but it has also brought challenges, as the balance of traditional diets has sometimes given way to excess, refinement, and imbalance. Nutrition today is not only about survival but about choices, about learning from traditions while adapting to new realities. When we look across cultures, what emerges is not a single diet but a shared principle. Grains or roots for energy, legumes or meats for protein, oils or seeds for fat, fruits and vegetables for vitamins and minerals. The details vary, the flavors differ, the rituals change, but the pattern remains. Human nutrition, wherever it has developed, reflects the same underlying needs, met through the resources available. Each culture, in its own way, has discovered how to combine foods to sustain life, to ensure not only survival but vitality. To reflect on human nutrition across cultures is to see both unity and diversity. We are united by the same biological requirements for energy, for protein, for vitamins, for minerals, for water, yet we are diverse in how we meet those needs, shaped by geography, climate, and tradition. Each diet tells a story of adaptation, each meal a story of connection to land and people. In the quiet act of eating, we take part in these stories, carrying forward traditions while also shaping new ones. In the end, nutrition across cultures reveals that food is more than fuel. It is memory, identity, connection, and continuity. It links us to the soil and to the seas, to ancestors and to neighbors, to history and to future generations. To eat is not only to live but to belong to a place, to a people, to a story much larger than ourselves. 20. Energy and balance in daily life. As we reach the end of this journey through nutrition and energy, it is fitting to pause and look at how all these pieces come together in daily life. Nutrients, digestion, metabolism, storage, and balance are not abstract concepts confined to textbooks. They are lived realities, quietly unfolding in every moment. Each breath, each step, each gesture is the visible reflection of countless hidden processes working in harmony. The foods we eat, the water we drink, the energy we expend, all these become part of a rhythm that shapes how we feel, how we think, and how we move through the world. Daily life is built upon cycles of energy intake and use. In the morning, after hours of rest, the body awakens with glycogen partially depleted, the bloodstream needing fresh glucose to restore balance. A meal at this time is not just tradition but necessity, replenishing stores, reviving energy, and setting the tone for the day. Carbohydrates provide immediate fuel. Proteins support repair and renewal, and fats contribute longer-lasting reserves. With water to rehydrate after the night, the body finds its balance again, ready for the demands ahead. As the day continues, energy flows in patterns shaped by activity and rest. During work or movement, Muscles draw upon glucose and fatty acids, converting them into ATP, the spark that fuels contraction. The brain, always consuming a steady share of glucose, continues its tireless work, guiding thought, decision, and memory. Between meals, the liver releases glucose from glycogen, ensuring stability, while fat stores contribute when needed. At each moment, the body adjusts, always keeping energy available, never allowing shortage to interrupt the quiet flow of life. Food choices throughout the day influence how this balance feels. A meal rich in simple sugars may bring a quick rise in energy, followed by a sharp fall, leaving fatigue in its wake. A meal with complex carbohydrates, proteins, and healthy fats provides steadier energy, sustaining the body and mind for hours. Fiber slows digestion, keeping blood sugar stable, while micronutrients support the many reactions that turn food into fuel. Hydration, too, plays its part, for even small losses of water can bring tiredness, clouded thought, or difficulty in concentration. Thus, energy balance is not only about quantity but about quality, about the gentle harmony between different kinds of nourishment. Rest is another part of this balance. Sleep is not an absence of activity, but a time when energy is redirected toward repair, renewal, and consolidation. Proteins rebuild tissues, glycogen stores are restored, memories are strengthened, and hormones reset their rhythms. Without sufficient rest, the body feels the imbalance quickly. Fatigue, reduced concentration, lowered resilience. Sleep is as much a part of nutrition as food and water, a reminder that balance includes both giving and receiving, both action and restoration. Movement, too, shapes the rhythm of energy. Activity increases the demand for ATP, drawing upon glycogen and fat, stimulating circulation, and enhancing oxygen use. Muscles grow stronger through repeated use. Bones maintain their density through weight bearing, and the heart becomes more efficient with regular motion. These changes in turn influence how energy is stored and used, improving the body's ability to balance intake and expenditure. A walk, a stretch, a gentle climb of stairs, each one becomes part of the dialogue between energy and life, part of the balance that sustains health. Emotion and thought also weave into this story. Stress can alter hormones, raising cortisol and influencing how the body uses and stores energy. Joy can bring relaxation, releasing signals that favor digestion and balance. Social connection at meals can influence not only what we eat but how we digest, for the body is not separate from the mind. Energy balance is not only physical but also emotional, shaped by environment, feeling, and context. The rhythms of daily life are complex, but they are unified by the body's continuous pursuit of harmony. Across cultures, the shape of daily nutrition reflects these same truths. Some traditions emphasize many small meals spread across the day, keeping energy stable. Others center on fewer, larger meals, balanced by rest or communal activity. Fasting rituals, observed in many faiths and traditions, create deliberate cycles of absence and abundance, teaching resilience and reflection. In each case, finding its way to balance, guided by systems that have evolved to sustain life under varied conditions. The modern world, with its abundance and its pace, has introduced new challenges to this balance. Processed foods, constant availability, and irregular schedules constrain the natural rhythms of intake and expenditure. Yet the principles remain the same. Energy balance thrives on variety, moderation, and consistency. Meals that blend macronutrients, rich in micronutrients, supported by hydration and rest, sustain not only health but also a sense of steadiness. The body, in its wisdom, asks not for perfection but for balance, a gentle middle ground that honors both need and restraint. When we step back, it becomes clear that energy balance is not only about survival, but about quality of life. With steady energy, the body feels light and capable, the mind clear and focused, the spirit calm. Without it, fatigue, imbalance, and restlessness take hold. Nutrition, movement, rest, and emotion all contribute to this balance, weaving together into a tapestry of daily life. Each thread is important, but it is the harmony of all threads that creates strength and beauty. To reflect on energy and balance is to reflect on the deep wisdom of the body. It knows how to draw upon yesterday's meals for today's needs, how to store in times of plenty and use in times of scarcity, how to regulate the smallest details of blood sugar, temperature, and hydration. It adjusts constantly, always seeking the middle ground where life can thrive. This wisdom is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, patient, and enduring. It asks only that we listen, that we provide variety, rest, and care, so that its work can continue without interruption. In the end, energy and balance in daily life are not goals to be achieved once, but rhythms to be lived. Each day begins anew, with energy to be taken in and energy to be spent, with balance to be sought in meals, in movement, in rest. Each meal is both nourishment and promise. Each night of sleep both restoration and preparation. Life continues not through abundance alone, nor through scarcity alone, but through the gentle balance between them, the steady flow that carries us forward. And so, the story of nutrition and energy, from the smallest molecule to the daily rhythms of life, is the story of balance itself. It is the story of how the body sustains not only existence but vitality, not only survival but well-being. In every culture, in every tradition, in every individual, this story unfolds quietly, a reminder that life depends on harmony. To live in balance is to live in tune with the body, with nature, with the quiet wisdom of life itself.